raise the price and cut
because
the
you need to
service
make
again.
them right, because you need to make the money now.
So I'll wait for the dust to settle and figure out who his successor is and how bad they are.
Yeah, I guess
before
we'll
I
have
go
to
back
see.
down. Anyway. Okay, we haven't had a chance to bash Disney in a while. It was good to
see. Do you feel better now?
I do. I feel like there's a weight lifted off of me now. This was such a great de-stressor for me.
I'm so glad.
So that's all we had today. Before we do go, I want to once again invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. Audio versions of this podcast can be found listed as Insights into Entertainment. You can get audio and video of all of our podcasts listed as Insights into Things. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, etc. I would also invite you to write to us. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com.
You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/insights_things.
We do stream 5 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/insightsintothings.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast.
You can find us streaming 6 days a week on YouTube, as well as all of our videos on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings.
You can find us on Instagram at instagram.com/insightsintothings.
Or you can find all that and more on our official website at insightsintothings.com. That's it. Another one in the books.
Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Tomorrow, where we take a deeper look into how the issues of today will impact the world of tomorrow. From politics and world news to media and technology, we discuss how today's headlines are becoming tomorrow's reality.
Welcome to Insights into Tomorrow. This is episode 18, Artificial Intelligence. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my co-host, Sam Whalen.
Hey, everybody. You believe we've done 18 of these?
18, wow. We're on a roll.
Wow, we'll get to 100 in no time.
Yeah, we kind of have fallen off of our cadence of monthly podcasts on this, haven't we?
There's just nothing to talk about.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you steer away from all the controversial topics.
Exactly.
So this week we're going to talk about a nice, safe topic, and that is artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm. No dire implications with that.
So you know how this one's going to end, folks.
Uh-huh.
So is the future of AI more like HAL 9000, Skynet, and The Matrix? Or is it more like WALL-E, Star Trek's Commander Data, or C-3PO from Star Wars? Some of the world's most brilliant minds, like Michio Kaku and Stephen Hawking, recognize the tremendous potential for artificial intelligence, but also offer words of caution at its development. Is artificial intelligence the next step in our evolution, or the first step in our ultimate destruction? How will AI impact humans? How will AI impact what humans create? And could humans be entirely removed from the creative process? That's what we'll be discussing on today's episode of Insights into Tomorrow. But before we do that, I'd like to take a moment to invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Tomorrow. You can find both audio and video versions of all the network's podcasts listed as Insights into Things. And we can be found anywhere you get a podcast these days: Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, etc. I would also encourage you to write in, give us your feedback, tell us how we're doing, give us suggestions on what you'd like us to talk about. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can find us on Twitter at insights_things, or on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast. Are we ready?
Yep, let's get into it.
Let's go. So what is artificial intelligence? So John McCarthy, head of computer science department at Stanford University in 2007, defined artificial intelligence as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines, especially intelligent computer programs. It's related to the similar task of using computers to understand human intelligence, but AI does not have to confine itself to methods that are biologically observable.
Like a brain.
Exactly. And this is kind of a different approach to artificial intelligence than what has traditionally been the measure of artificial intelligence. And that was really something called the Turing test that was created by Alan Turing back in the 1950s. So the Turing test basically said if it's observable and convincing enough to be a human, the test basically was two people having a conversation, a third party watching that conversation, and if the third party watching that conversation, it's all text-based, can't distinguish the AI for the human, then it's passed the Turing test. So kind of a loose definition of what AI was back at the time there. So it was basically how well it could emulate a human being. But I think AI has changed significantly in that time, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have to, change what we define it as well. It's not just text based. It can do way more than that now. It's expanded, pretty exponentially since then.
So what is a modern take on artificial intelligence?
So we have some information here from Stuart Russell, professor of computer science at the University of California, Berkeley, and Peter Norvig. I apologize, Peter, if I mispronounced your name there. He's the director of research for Google, published Artificial Intelligence, A Modern Approach. It became one of the leading textbooks, I believe this is Norvig's book, in the study of AI. In it, they delve into 4 potential goals or definitions of AI, which differentiates computer systems on the basis of rationality and thinking versus acting. So we have the human approach, systems that think like humans, systems that act like humans as well, and the ideal approach, systems that think rationally, and then systems that act rationally. Turing's definition would have fallen under the category of systems that act like humans. And there's a little bit more here that I'm going to keep reading. I didn't realize that was part of it. At its simplest form, artificial intelligence is a field which combines computer science and robust data sets to enable problem solving. Basically, we're making these things as a sort of extra brain to help us out. It also encompasses subfields of machine learning and deep learning, which are frequently mentioned in conjunction with artificial intelligence. These disciplines are comprised of AI algorithms, which seek to create expert systems which make predictions or classifications based on that input data.
So AI right now, some of the biggest things in AI right now probably are algorithms. You have the famed Google algorithm for searches, and they apply it to YouTube. And is the algorithm itself that basically looks at usage patterns and what you're doing online and then determines what else you would like? Is that considered a form of artificial intelligence?
I think it would be. I mean, it's interpreting data and then I guess projecting and it's making its own conclusions based on that data and then sort of showing you that conclusion, right? So if you click on something on Instagram and you read the page long enough and you go back to Instagram, it'll have more things like that. Or it happens to me all the time because every device is listening to you all the time. You mention a product and then 5 seconds later an ad for it pops up on your Instagram, or you text somebody about it and the same thing. So it's definitely always watching and always learning.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think we've run into that in the house here because I've got a whole boatload of Amazon A products. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to actually activating. But that's the same sort of thing. That and Siri and what's the Android version of voice
Bixby?
assist? Bixby, is that it? So all of these assistants are some type of artificial intelligence as well. But how intelligent are they really?
Not very.
Yeah, that's kind of like none of them are thinking on their own. They all require some level of input. They all require some source of data that they go out and get. Like if you ask the Amazon devices for information on something, they'll come back and tell you a Google contributor added this. So they don't even seem to compile their own set of knowledge. So it's almost like it's more of an interface to the web than it is really an artificial intelligence. It might be an intelligent way to interface with it, but we're not talking HAL 9000.
Right. It's not learning and adapting necessarily.
Right. And it can't take its own actions or anything like that. You know, when we get into stuff like that, we might be looking at something like a Tesla or a self-driving car, where it takes input from outside sensors and has the ability to make decisions on its own at that point in time.
Right.
That's where we tend to get a little bit more down the rabbit hole of how dangerous things could be.
Yeah, once you start getting into the territory, we transition out of this into our next segment of more developed intelligence, of where that could possibly go once something starts thinking for itself.
Right. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll dig a little bit deeper into the types of artificial intelligence that are out there. We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. Welcome back to Insights into Tomorrow. We're talking artificial intelligence today. So and I don't want to go through every line that we have here, just kind of throw a few things out there. So the types of artificial intelligence that we're really kind of referring to here can be broken into two categories. One's capabilities and the other's functionalities. So under your capabilities, you've got narrow AI. And an example of narrow AI is sort of like what we talked about with Siri, where it's also referred to as weak AI. It focuses on a narrow task. You could even classify IBM's Watson that was used for chess playing in something like this as well. It's not robust. It's not thinking on its own. You then get into your general AIs, and your general AIs tend to be a little bit more sophisticated. These are your strong AIs. You can understand and learn intellectual tasks that humans can do. So you're getting a little bit smarter with these, but the requirements from a hardware standpoint, you need a supercomputer. The couple that are listed here are two of the fastest supercomputers in the world in order to accomplish this.
Yeah, and do we know what these? We have the Fujitsu K. Do you know what those are used for? Like what type of computing we're using these like intense supercomputers for?
Most of these are being used for simulating weather, simulating nuclear explosions without actually having to fire them off. So
Oh, that's helpful.
they're highly complicated and powerful devices just to get this next level of AI. And then the last level of AI from a capability standpoint is what's referred to as super AI. This is where AI, this is your Skynet. This is where it surpasses human intelligence. None exist at this point in time, thankfully. But is this the direction that we're going as we're seeing this natural progression? Are we going to see super AIs?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I want that. and then you get into like the Blade Runner discussion of like what makes something human. When you give something a will of its own, like what we're getting into like deep sci-fi territory here. But I don't know if we would ever get to that point. If what would we need something like that for? I mean, maybe to like run a city, like monitor trains and public works and stuff like that on like a city level. I don't know what we ever need something that smart for, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see from an infrastructure standpoint, most of what we do now, you've got positive train controls, a great example you just mentioned with trains, where if the human operator fails to make certain checks, the computer can kick in and run things safely or shut the system down safely. So there's lesser versions of that now, but I think seeing something like that on a grand scale might be something where a super AI would work. What about functionality-based AIs? Tell us about that.
So we've got the reactive machine. Reactive machine is the primary form of AI that does not store memories or use past experiences to determine future actions. It only works in the present. So an example of this would be IBM's Deep Blue chess playing computer. That thing's really cool, by the way.
Yeah.
I've seen some videos of that. It's really neat.
Gary Kasparov would differ from that.
We've also got limited memory AI, which trains from the past to make decisions. They do have a memory, but it's very short-lived. And an example of this would be used in self-driving vehicles, like we mentioned, Teslas, things like that. And then finally, we have theory of the mind. On the show, we like to say theater of the mind. That's kind of like that. Theory of the mind AI represents an advanced class of technology and exists only as a concept. They would require thorough understanding of the people and the things within the environment, including understanding feelings and behaviors. There's no examples because they don't exist, but attempts at mimicking human emotion in automatons is as close as we can get.
One of the things regarding that is that people are trying to experiment with this, and and they're doing it through the same type of training that they're using for Chat GPT and the other AI engines that are out there. We'll talk more about those in a little bit. But what they're doing is they're having human beings emulate emotions, facial expressions of emotions, sadness, happiness, that type of thing. And they're having multiple iterations of people doing these. They're sticking them in a database, and then they're having a computer look at these and interpret them. So just by facial expressions, they're trying to get computers to understand emotions. How effective do you think that would be? How effective would it be for you to have no other communication method whatsoever, but just be able to see someone's face? Do you think that they would be able to convey emotions accurately enough?
I don't know. It would depend on how they're measuring it, right? Like if you're looking at like specific muscle movements for like a frown versus a smile, but everybody expresses emotion in different ways. So you'd have to have some kind of baseline to do that. And I forget the name of it. We learned it in college, but it's that thing where you show us an image of a guy's face, and it's that effect where you can interpret it however you want. Like it's the same face over and over again, but if you interpret it as in he's happy, you can kind of see it, or he's sad, you can kind of see it. And so I wonder where you get into something like that, where it's like it's sort of a gray area of, well, is this person really happy? That's when you have to go back to the baseline of if we're measuring facial tics or
Right.
a certain, I don't know, visual ratios on your face.
Yeah, and I agree. And like, I don't know if I, as a person who doesn't need artificial intelligence, would be able to accurately understand emotions.
Right.
And then I look at the technology that we've had with facial recognition already, and some of the challenges we've had, where you had, for instance, Microsoft's camera technology that they had on their Xbox series. When that came out, not that many years ago, they only used Caucasian people to train it. And as people with darker skin, Asians, African Americans, and so forth, started using it, the technology didn't hold up.
Right.
And it was because of the way that the technology itself was developed and trained and
The foundation of it.
exactly. So it's like, if you can't get that right, then I have a very difficult time thinking you're going to get emotions.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You get into like user error at that point. If you're trying to emulate human behavior, but you don't account for the whole world, how are we going to apply this in any
Right.
practical sense?
Right. And that's why you'd almost have to think you need multiple forms of input: voice inflection, body movement, the micro ticks that people have, I could certainly see you coming up with enough data points that you could infer what emotions are, but you need to have those data points there, and it has to be more sensors than just trying to read someone's face.
Yeah, and do we need this? Why would we need this?
Right, and that's another point. One of the implementations that people have talked about with this is customer service. They had the one hotel in Tokyo that didn't last very long, that the front desk was entirely run by automaton.
I'm sure that was a blast.
And it was because they thought the automatons would interact better with people than people would, which I'm not really sure why you would think that. But the problem you run into is you get into that uncanny valley scenario where people are just creeped out by it. It looks enough like a human to make you think it is, but not enough to know it is. So it made people feel very uncomfortable. But I could see in a situation like that where you're implementing emotional stuff, detection, where you want to know if someone's angry. Do I really need to get a manager? Are you like stuff like that where you're interacting with people?
I could see that.
It's funny that they're exploring that path now when you have grocery stores that are doing away with their self-checkout because people dislike not having a human to deal with at a register now. So it's like, I don't know if it's a cultural thing, if it's a regional thing or what, but it seems people are kind of finicky.
Yeah, I don't know. And also, it's like, is it cost effective to build a robot to talk to people than to just hire someone for minimum wage to work at the front desk?
Right. That's a very good
I know
point.
the argument is that, well, the robot could do it for forever, whereas we have to worry about this person, their livelihood, and they need to go to the bathroom, take a break, things like that. Robots don't have to do that. But it's like, I mean, come on.
You don't have to contribute to a 401k with robots either.
Exactly. Yeah, you just got to swap out a few parts every once in a while.
Right.
So I don't know. And the practicality is where I get hung up on of how are we really going to use these things, and are they going to be worth the effort and time we're putting into trying to figure it out?
I agree, and I think it's almost like it's a fun school project people are working.
Yeah.
on. But the golden ring or the prize of artificial intelligence, at least as far as sci-fi tells us, is self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Self-awareness is where the AI, they only exist hypothetically right now, and only in science fiction for the most part.
Yeah.
But these are the types of systems that can understand internal traits and states and conditions and perceive human emotions. And these machines are smarter than the human mind, which is really what's terrifying, I think, to a lot of people. They'll be able to understand and evoke emotions in those it interacts with, but it'll also have its own emotions, its needs, its beliefs. This is where we get into things like a HAL 9000 from 2001 or Skynet or something like that. I don't know if anyone's shooting for self-awareness. Is self-awareness possible with today's technology?
I was actually just thinking about that because, like, you have in here about it having its own emotions and needs, and I think it would be more terrifying if it didn't have emotions, if it was purely logical, right? Because, you make a AI and it instantly determines that humans are bad for the planet and decides to wipe us out.
Right.
Because, we could make that conclusion, but we're also, we are humans. We're not going to wipe ourselves out, intentionally. So it's like, I don't know if we would get to the point where that's possible. I don't know. I obviously don't know anything about programming, but how would we program emotion? I guess, you're seeing the baby steps with this facial recognition software, but at what point are we able to program emotions? Is it something like using a human brain as the blueprint? I have no idea where this would go, but it sounds like fantasy, but one that is close enough to reality that, maybe, but I just don't know how they would do it.
And you make a very valid point there. I think humans in general have a very difficult time dealing with emotions, recognizing emotions, and coping with them already. I don't know how you would possibly translate that into software.
No, I think it would have to be. You can't. I mean, it's all math based, right? So you can't. That's the whole point of emotion. You can't quantify it, right?
Right.
Unless you measure like heart rate, I guess, if you're angry or sweating or biological reactions. But when it gets to the thinking about interpreting emotions, I just think it's too nebulous. And if we did have a self-aware AI, it would have to be, maybe based off of personality, or it would just be purely logical.
So then we're talking something more along the lines of RoboCop, where we take the ex-con and we stick his brain into the robot there, and that's the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I was thinking that, or in Halo, if you guys are familiar with that, they use a human brain to then make an AI.
Right.
So the AI is like part human, kind of. Something like that, but I don't think we can do that yet, and I don't know how we would.
And you know what? I think that's probably the biggest limiting factor right now, I think, is our computing power.
Yep.
In order to produce the amount of computational power that the human brain has, you need the fastest supercomputer right now to even approach it. And I think until we get to, real practical quantum computing, I don't think we have much of a hope of even reproducing it. People, I think, don't understand how remarkably capable the human brain is.
A lot going on.
Yeah, how fast it operates, how many different things it can do at one time. And computers just haven't gotten to that point yet. Yes, computers are very good at doing the same thing over and over again. And they're very good at doing math. But they're only that good because humans make them that good.
Yeah, and it's when you get that line of where what we're creating is superseding us, that it's like, okay, well, maybe we've gone a little bit too far.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point where we can take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about, is artificial intelligence dangerous in its current form and future forms? We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. So Elon Musk, wrote, "The pace of progress in artificial intelligence," he says, I'm not referring to narrow AI, "is incredibly fast. Unless you have direct exposure to groups like DeepMind, you have no idea how fast. It's growing at a pace close to exponential. The risk of something seriously dangerous happening is in the next 5-year time frame, 10 years at most."
Where was this quote from?
So this was from Elon Musk. I didn't see where the quote.
I just wanted to see if we were still in the window or not.
I didn't get a date on that, but I have to imagine we're pretty close to that window.
Any day now, the robot uprising is going to happen.
Well, the fact that he made cars that are self-driving and running people over and killing them tells me right now that AI actually physically is dangerous.
He can make himself sound smarter by just becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So, what do you think of that? I mean, I think there's a lot of scholars, there's a lot of scientists that talk about AI. Elon Musk is a guy who's neck deep in it. He's building them. He's releasing them. You see what we do. SpaceX has rockets that fly back to Earth and land themselves. Tesla has cars that can drive themselves and park themselves and stuff. So that's real practical AI that's in the world now. How serious do you think you take this kind of warning from Elon Musk?
Not that seriously. Just because I don't see any like real world application of this idea, right? I also don't know what DeepMind is, but it sounds very scary. But I just don't think, I don't know. I feel like we would be seeing more examples of it other than the Teslas running people over and causing traffic. But that's just faulty hardware. That's not necessarily, the AI thinking for itself and choosing to kill all humans. That's a functionality issue, right? So I don't know. I don't think it would be this quick. I just think we would see more implementation of AI in our day-to-day lives for it to then turn into something dangerous. The most I could see it being is like an over-reliance on computers and AI instead, and when then they malfunction, then you have problems like the recent airport, the what was it, the FAA systems went down, things like that, things where we have large-scale operations being run by AI, and then the AIs break, and then we have a problem.
So Musk was quoted in a separate quote comparing AI to the dangers of the dictator of North Korea. Now, yes, it's Elon Musk, so there's a lot of
Take it with a big old grain of salt.
there's a lot of self-promoting, angles that he goes through here. But we've got artificial intelligence in machines that are capable of killing people, not designed to, but capable.
Right.
We also have it designed into devices that are designed to kill people. You've got Predator drones that are AI driven. You've got Tomahawk cruise missiles that are AI driven. You've got Phalanx Sea-Wiz close-in war weapon systems on ships that are AI driven. These are machines that are built already to kill and are powered by AI. Are those potentially dangerous, or do you think we have enough control over those?
Well, I mean, they're weapons, right? So they're inherently dangerous. It would be more about, again, I just think, are we shooting for the notion of them like rising up and like actively trying to kill people? Because I think it would be much more realistic for them to just be taken over by another human, right? To have somebody hack into them or to have them malfunction and instead of targeting here, you're targeting somewhere else where you're not supposed to. I just don't think it would be the AI necessarily choosing to kill a bunch of people. I think instead it would be a malfunction.
So to paraphrase, we're hoping that it's humans that are the problem,
Right.
and not the AI that's
Exactly.
the problem.
And we can count on that.
Yeah, to a certain extent, that logic makes sense because you can count on that human factor. Like, it's very likely that you would have a foreign entity attack our infrastructure here before I think you would have an AI go rogue and shut down the power grid.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you're not gonna you talked about the Predator missiles. Like, the Predator missile's not gonna wake up one day and go, "Hey, I'm gonna go blow up that town." Someone's gonna have to tell it to go do that. It doesn't. We're not at the point where these things can like actively, pursue missions or pursue goals on their own unless they're told to by somebody else, like an operator.
So, all right, let's run with that for a second. So they're not going to rise up. You're not going to have a Skynet take over the world and nuke the entire world. But you have machines that are trusted to go do a job that may involve violence.
Mm-hmm.
If those machines can then be usurped by a nefarious third party, and our trust in those machines allows them to continue to do their job, when they get usurped, we have a new target designation.
Right, exactly. And that's I think where you get into the real world danger of this. But I mean, that's our world in general has a heavy reliance on computers, right? And so I think that comes with the risk, right, of the ease of use and the scale of our operations. You need something like AI to run it because it's not feasible for people to do it all the time. And I think that just comes with the territory of, if this is how we're going to run things, then there's a chance that someone could take it over. It's no different than, well, it's different, but we're reducing a little bit. But if you had a gun and someone took your gun and killed you with it, it's the same thing.
So AI is the tool.
Yeah.
It's not the intent.
For now, yeah.
Okay.
Until we get to the point where, we have a fleet of drones that are, flying around the globe just taking pot shots wherever they want, that are programmed. Well, I guess they wouldn't be programmed at that point. But I'm saying, like, instead of a fleet of jets flown by pilots, if it was a fully automated, a bunch of drones where they could all communicate and make their own decisions. Once they get into that level of autonomy, that's when you're running into more of an AI based issue, I think.
So Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, everyone's
We're getting
friend,
all the banner people out here today.
he said at one point in time, artificial intelligence is the future not only for Russia, but for all humankind. It comes with enormous opportunities, but also threats that are difficult to predict. Whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will become the ruler of the world.
That's a little extreme.
First off, do you agree with that?
I mean, I guess, because at that point, wouldn't you just have the strongest army too? If it's he says it's got enormous opportunity, right? So then by that logic, you would, unless those unpredictable threats like make it worse for you. I don't know. Like, I don't think it's any different than having the strongest standing army, right? And whoever has that, you're by default the most powerful, unless you control like the economy. That's different. But in terms of like military force, if you have a bigger or more effective army, yeah, you're going to be more powerful, right?
So, do you think that in order to combat nations, like assuming Russia's gearing up towards artificial intelligence, do you think the only way to combat nations like that is with your own artificial intelligence?
I think so. I mean, that's how these things usually go, right? Like an AI arms race, which, hey, sci-fi authors out there, that's a free title. But, yeah, I just think it's going to... And you're going to dig yourself into a hole, right? Because the more we go into this AI route, the more you're getting into these threats that are difficult to predict, like he's talking about. So the further we go with this technology, the more we're getting on that edge of accidentally making something that could either get its own intelligence or something that is more likely to be, like you said, usurped and used against the, whatever country's making it.
Okay. Now we're talking AI in actual active weapons there, but there's potential danger elsewhere too. What about social manipulation? What do you think AI could do from a social manipulation standpoint? I mean, so far we've had social media, I don't want to say usurped because it's being used as it's designed.
Right.
But you've had situations where you've got Facebook and the whole Cambridge Analytics, and you've got Twitter trying to, all the Twitter files coming out now telling us how people try to manipulate elections and stuff. Where do you think AI falls in there? Is AI, is that algorithm as you go through your social feed, is that AI manipulating you in such a way that it could be dangerous?
Absolutely. And I think that this is where you get into the things that are much more real world dangers, right? Especially when it comes to things like social media, you run into that echo chamber issue where you're only hearing ideas and things that reinforce what you think. So you never hear anybody else's ideas, for better or worse. But generally, I think that's a bad thing. I think that you should be able to, see ideas from everybody and then interpret them how you want. But when you get into this with social media where you're seeing the same things over and over again, it just reinforces your own beliefs and makes you double down. And it makes everybody closed-minded and more isolated from each other and more extreme in their beliefs, too, in certain situations. So I think when you're getting into things like that, and like you said, the Cambridge Analytica thing where it's straight-up manipulation of people, I think when those have real-world consequences, which they did and still do, I think that's much more dangerous than worrying about a drone going rogue or something like that.
Well, surely manipulating the mindset of common citizens isn't something that's unique to AI. I mean, the Nazi Germany had an entire propaganda ministry that was designed to do that. You've had this type of thing that was driven by humans for hundreds of years now. What does AI bring to the plate that makes it any more dangerous than just humans doing this type of activity?
I think it's the scale and the pace of it, right? So AI is very good at learning. That's what it does. Or at least whatever. I'm talking about the algorithm in social media.
Right.
It's good at learning what you do, what you look at. And I think it can do it at a pace and with an effectiveness that humans just can't do or can't do as fast or on such a big of a scale. I mean, a human could look at what you do on Twitter, what you click on, what you like, but it would take them much longer to figure out, okay, well, what should I serve them next in their timeline that they'll click on versus an AI looking at it and figuring it out like that. So I think it just makes it more effective and efficient, honestly.
That's a very good point. So the other one that they talk about is invasion of privacy and social grading. I don't know if we've never really talked about social grading in the past here. It's being done in some Asian countries already, where depending on what your reputation in social media is how you're treated in society. But I've seen this in sci-fi as well, where it's extremely emphasized in how people treat you. But from an invasion of privacy, you brought up a very good point of, well, everything's listening, and if I say something, I start getting advertisements. Is that a bad thing that you get targeted advertising?
I think it depends on how you look at it. I know people that feel like they're being manipulated. They'd rather it be not targeted and just give me what I want.
Well, that's what targeted advertising is they give you what they think you want. Without targeted advertising, you're just going to get a bunch of crap thrown at you there. I mean, is that really a bad thing that you get targeted advertising?
I think when you, like, the people that have issues with it, I think they see it as of being manipulated, that even if it's something I want.
Well, advertising is manipulative.
It's true, which is why it's
That's
so effective.
the definition of advertising.
I know. I just think it's like, I think people have an issue with it because it's that invasion of privacy of, even in my own home, I'm being sampled for data and it's being regurgitated back at me so I can become a better consumer. You know, like it eventually it just feels like it's all boiling down to you just pumping money into you know the economy.
Okay, I'll buy that.
It is effective though if you're a business owner.
Absolutely.
From a capitalist standpoint, it's great.
Yeah, exactly. One of the other ones they talk about is misalignment between our goals and the machines. And this one, I don't know how much of a problem this was. The great example they give is you get into a self-driving cab and you say, get me to the airport as quickly as possible. Okay. But if the machine itself is doing what it thinks you asked it to do, that could involve exceeding the speed limit. It could involve dangerous driving. It could involve driving into the river that's between you and the airport to try to get you there. I think this is kind of a silly example of, I mean, this is no different than people following their GPSs off the road, you know. Is this something we need to worry about, where if we're putting our lives in the hands of these machines at some point in time, and you know, they're already talking about having air taxis to the airport and stuff like that. So you're ramping up the level of complexity and the level of danger associated with the reliance on these machines. Is it possible that somebody misses a line of code that says stop at stop signs? Is that a danger?
I mean, not really, right? If these things are being put out on a global scale, surely they would test them, right, and see if that's an issue. You've had some issues with this with self-driving cars where they have malfunctions, where they'll, you know, I saw one the other day where a Tesla was in like a tunnel and just stopped, and I don't know why, and then like 8 cars hit it. So things like that will happen, but I think if you're talking about like the foundation of the code getting out there, that's something's wrong with it, I don't really think you have to worry about that. I feel like it would be extremely irresponsible of whatever company is making it to put it out there, not having it be fully vetted, especially when you're getting into like transportation and things like that.
There was one example of a Tesla that was driving on a highway at high speed, which they supposedly excel at. They're very good at that because that's how the sensors work best and the computer works best and everything.
Going fast?
On a highway situation where they're not doing stop and go traffic a lot. And what happened was there was a vehicle that was in the left lane that this thing was driving in, and it wasn't expecting a vehicle. It wasn't expecting a stationary target. And because they use LiDAR and they use radar, and they'll gauge the distance between themselves and the next machine. And the assumption is that machine's going to be moving so we can make calculations based on timing. And what happened was this vehicle was stopped in the left-hand lane. The device, the smart car, saw that the machine was there. But because it wasn't moving, it assumed that it was a glitch in the sensor, never tried to hit the brakes, and literally accelerated right through the vehicle. And it did everything it was supposed to do based on the rules that it had. And someone had missed a rule that said, hey, there's the chance that something could be stopped in your lane. You have to stop for it.
Yep.
And that got out there after all this extensive testing. That still got out there into production. So there's a chance that you can get code that's broken out there.
That's true.
How do you deal with that? Who's liable at that point in time?
I mean, probably the company still, right? I mean, it's still their self-driving car that rammed into it. I think the onus is still on them. Even if it's something that they could never predict, then don't make the technology. If there's a chance that something like this could happen, then maybe it's just not meant to be. Or we just go through the trial and error of, potentially people losing their lives until we figure it out and put out enough software updates, if you want to look at it in like a morbid sense. But I mean, there's things
that could be a high attrition rate.
That's
there.
what I'm saying. Like, I just think maybe at a certain point, if the body count gets high enough before you get version 4.0, maybe we just don't do it. Maybe we just stick to driving ourselves around, or we limit it to, certain public transportation options instead of every consumer having their own self-driving car.
And that's certainly a consideration to solve some of these things. And the last danger I wanted to talk about was discrimination. We had already kind of talked about this to a certain extent with
the social grading,
and with the malfunction of the Microsoft camera system for minorities. How do you think this would have an impact on society itself from a discrimination standpoint? Either facial recognition AI. We had one situation very recently in our area here where somebody was arrested and held for, I think, 48 hours based on a facial recognition that was completely wrong. So it's already happening. Is that a danger that we need to be aware of? Is there checks and balances that can be put in place? Should we not be relying on AI for this type of thing?
I mean, yeah, no, we should not be. if this is gonna happen, yeah. I mean, sure, there's mix up with people getting held when they're not supposed to, and that's an issue for another day of the justice system and things like that. But I think that when it comes to things like this, where you're affecting people's lives, you should probably have a double check system or like a backup to be like, okay, well, the robot figured it out, but let's just use our own eyes and see if this is the guy.
Yeah, well, and I see something like this being used extensively in high traffic areas, airports, right? So you want to be safe going through the airport, but you want to be expeditious in moving people through. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things that we do, we rely on technology to accomplish that. If you get a certain failure rate of that system itself, is that tolerable, or should that be 100% accurate?
That's a good question. I mean, if you're going to be the 99% effective and you get that 1%, there still needs to be a human element so that person isn't held for 3 days because they got the wrong person. Like, there needs to be, if someone gets pulled up on facial recognition, someone needs to look at it and have that person come and I'm just saying there needs to still be a human element. We can't let it totally be run by the machines if they're not going to be 100% accurate.
So you need a path of resolution
that
is human involved. And I have my own story. There was about 2-3 years ago, I got a ticket in the mail for a vehicle that I didn't even own. And it came back as a red light camera somewhere in North Jersey, which I knew I'd never even been to the town. It was like Amboy or something like that. So they send it with a picture, and you look at the picture, and there's a link to the video for it, and you look at the video, and it had, 5 characters, 6 characters on a license plate? It had all the characters on a license plate that I hadn't had of the vehicle in 20 years. Mm. And that plate was originally registered to me, but there was a glitch either on the camera or on the plate. You couldn't read one of the digits in the middle. So the AI just assumed that it was my plate, generates a ticket, and sends the ticket out to me, and I get an order to appear in court. That's AI-driven problems that you have that should have been looked at by a human being, mm-hmm. but because of the number of tickets that they produce, you can't. The whole point of having an automated system is because you can't have a human looking at all these things. However, to your point, I was able to call them up, explain to them what it was. They were able to resolve the ticket on the phone, and I didn't have to go for the court appearance. So that system at least had that path to resolution, whereas I think as long as we have that in place, we're safe. But do you want to be that guy that they make that mistake with?
No, and that's that's the territory, right? If we're gonna rely on these things, and it's like it's something similar to getting on a plane or something where you're giving up a amount of control for convenience or for convenience. Honestly, if you're gonna give up that element of what you can control, then there's a risk that comes with that, no matter what it is. And I think that this is an example of that.
That just sounds like a really poor way of explaining the way airplane crashes.
Hey man, you get on the plane, you gotta expect it. All right.
We expect the least expected.
I bring a parachute every time I travel.
All right. I think we've kind of exhausted where we can go wrong with AI at this point from a danger standpoint. Let's take our last break and we'll come back and we're going to talk about the impact of AI on our world today and moving forward. We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. Welcome back to Insights into Tomorrow, and thank you to today's sponsor, the Second Sith Empire.
Really paid for all that airtime, huh?
They are an awesome guild. I recommend everyone look them up. Anyway, moving right along.
Hit it one more time.
Anyway, so let's look at what the impact of AI on the world today. So some quick figures I dug up here from simplylearn.com. So the revenue from artificial intelligence software market worldwide is expected to reach $126 billion by 2025. That's significant. Not huge, but significant. Gartner predicts 37% of organizations have implemented AI in some form.
I thought they'd be higher.
I would have too. The percentage of enterprises employing AI grew 270% over the last 4 years. And according to Servion Global Solutions, by 2025, 95% of customer interactions will be powered by AI.
So we got 2 years to figure that out.
That's right. And a recent 2020 report from Statista reveals the global AI software market is expected to grow approximately 54% year over year and is expected to reach a forecast size of $22.6 billion. Which doesn't really make sense because the other one was 126.
Sure does. Hey man, data's weird. They all got different conclusions.
It's numbers, right?
Don't worry about it.
I think the conclusion here is that AI is very much embedded in our lives now. Are we better off for that, or are we worse off for that?
Oh, that's a good question. We've looked at like every aspect of AI, and I think it's good in some aspects, right? We're taking the load off of humans if we can run things with an AI just to make our lives a little bit easier. I think that's a good thing because at a certain point when we're talking about things on a global scale, it's just not practical to expect humans to be able to run all that 24/7. But then when you get into the more dangerous aspects of social manipulation, we're about to get into the discussion of how it affects creative endeavors. I think that's when you start getting into the dangerous territory, and it's really going to be a question of where does this go in the next 5 to 10 years? Are we getting that full on AI integration in every day of our lives? Or is it still like it is now where it's more in the background? It's not necessarily as prominent.
And I agree. I think we're very, very much on the cusp of something significant here. I think we're kind of nipping around the edges right now until we get deeper into it. Some of the special projects that I did want to talk about, one that's in the news now, is ChatGPT. Their tagline is optimizing language models for dialogue. And this is a chatbot that is human-like interactions. You can ask it things; it'll answer them. One of the things, this happens to actually be something that I had directed my developers at the office to dig into a little bit. One of the functions that I see with this is helping to automate and personalize communication for our sales force. So the concept that we had come up with a few years back, and the technology wasn't there yet, was our salespeople know their customers. So the salespeople can go in and drop in notes. You know, Tom likes the Phillies. His wife's name is this. His kids' names are this, and they're going to these college. They can put in this metadata about the person, and eventually, the idea was to have this technology that could take this metadata and write a monthly email to each one of your customers that's personalized, that might have specific information as far as offers that we might have, but it looks like it's coming from you. And we want to write these, hand them off to the salesperson, let the salesperson read it and okay it, and then send it out. And we're literally within months of being able to have the system start writing emails like that. Is that, in your opinion, is that a viable, good way of using AI, or are we stealing some of the human element there? Are we muddying the waters?
I mean, it depends on how much you care about these handwritten or emails. You know, these personalized emails. If you're okay sacrificing the human element of it, then it's fine. It still has the human element, right? The salespeople still have to know their customers. They still have to know
Exactly.
the things that make it personal, and they still okay before it's sent off. I think that's fine. Yeah, I don't really have any issues with that.
But if I have a salesperson who doesn't compose emails very well, is it ethical for them to use this system to compose their emails for them, or is it the same as having an assistant doing it for you, or is it different because it's AI?
That's a good question. It's like cheating on homework, kind of.
Right.
But I mean, in the real world, you're not like, I don't know. It's cheating on homework in the real world isn't as big of a deal as it is in high school. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to make these sales, right? So if you're not good at writing emails, first off, I don't know how far you would have gotten as a salesperson. But second, it's like a tool. I think in this instance, it's like another tool to use. If emails aren't your thing, but when you're in one-on-one interactions, you can make the sale. Good for you. You can use this as a tool. If you are relying on this to do your job for you, that's a little bit different, right? If you're relying on it to make sales pitches for you and to reach out to customers, and you're kind of just sitting back and maybe putting in a few inputs, then you're relying on it too much, and it's becoming an issue because you're not doing the work.
So it's just a matter of pacing how much you use the tool.
Yeah, and implementation.
So the next one I wanted to talk about was Canva. So Canva is a AI based image generating software out there, and there's a number of them out there now. And you basically give it text input and say, give me a picture done up like Van Gogh of a horse in a rainbow. And it'll go out there and it'll source thousands of different images, and it'll come back and it'll generate what's considered an original image for you, so you don't have to make it yourself. But that image itself is a compilation of all these other works. Is that something that is going too far, or are there any moral implications to that we have to worry about?
Yeah, this is actually the whole reason I wanted to do this episode was things like this. I know we covered the doom and gloom of AI taking over the world, but this is where I think it really is. It strikes a chord with me of it's essentially making like art sausage, but like if you didn't make any of the components of the sausage to begin with, you kind of just put it in the blender and called it your own. It's really devaluing art and the human element of it. And when people feel that they can get this app and make art like with no effort, it kind of defeats the purpose of it in general. There's also Lensa, which is similar to it. And I had an article linked here where there was cases where you could see artist signatures on the final product, what Lensa would create, because it was just stealing artwork from other people. And that's how a lot of these AI work, is that you put in what you want and it scours the internet and will take from other artists' pages, usually without permission. It just kind of steals it and then, incorporates it back into itself and spits it out for you. But you feel like you've made this, and you really haven't. You didn't do any. I mean, you didn't. You don't know how to do digital art or anything like that. It's like putting it on easy mode. But also the bigger thing is stealing from the people that did make something, and I really think it's an issue.
So let me ask you something, and we'll kind of go down the moral path here. If I don't have any artistic ability whatsoever, but I need to come up with a picture, and let's say I need a picture of a tree, and I don't know how to make a picture of a tree, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to look at other people's samples, and I'm going to find one that I really, really like, and then I go and I kind of try to recreate that as my image of a tree. Is that the same moral ambiguity as what a Canva is doing? Because Canva had the same problem. They wound up getting sued by Getty Images.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Because they weren't even pulling the watermarks out.
Oh,
It was
man.
so bad. Is me using someone else's inspiration to make my own different than these AIs going out there and grabbing these? Because they don't always take a one-to-one image. They may take portions of an image, almost like sampling a track in music, and then they assemble it together from multiple different sources. What's the difference in the two of those?
Well, I think, in your example, I'm assuming you're like drawing it yourself. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's where I think the line is. With the AI generated art, you're just typing in what you want and it just appears, and it's compiled from other images. With the inspiration, you are taking inspiration from that thing that somebody else made and then making your own interpretation of it. Even if it's not very good, you still put in the time and the work to make it something original, even if it's inspired by something else. Like you said with sampling music, you can take a sample from another song that somebody else made, but then you incorporate that section of it and you make a whole new thing out of it. It's its own thing, even if it's borrowing from something else. And I think that's kind of where the line is drawn.
That's a good point. The other thing with Lensa is Lensa has one of the big functions Lensa adds is what they call their magic correction. So you take a picture of someone, you run it through the Lensa filter, and you have the filters with Snapchat and stuff like that that can make the googly eyes and all that crazy stuff that you can do. Is the AI that's doing that different, or do you take exception to that from a creative standpoint when it's taking your art and enhancing it because maybe you don't have the technical capabilities to do that?
I mean, that's a good question. It's similar to, photoshopping an image, right? Or using a filter on Instagram, or it's not authentically the thing, but it's, I don't know. As long as you still made it from the beginning, I think it's a little bit better than just straight up stealing the art. But I still think it's messing with the authenticity of it, right? And it gets into our perception of what is made by humans and what is made by AI, and what does that mean for art if we can't tell the difference. And I think that's sort of the road we're going down at this point. When it gets into the enhancement, it's not as bad. It's still not great.
Well, and I'll counter that and say if you can't tell the difference between whether it's man-made or machine-made, isn't that really the ultimate goal of AI at that point, is to make it indistinguishable from human hands?
Well, that's the scary part, right? Because if you can't tell the difference, but it still stole a bunch of other people's art, then it is actively devaluing all the art that it just stole from, even if you can't tell the difference. Even if you don't know that it took from, 10 other artists to make this, it still happened, right? And it's still, even if it's indistinguishable, the consequences of it are still real.
So the dilemma that you're referring to here is more the sourcing of where it gets its material from, rather than the generation of that material.
Right, because it's not magic, right? Like the AI is not making, it's not like physically drawing it, but it's not necessarily entirely originally from the mind of the AI. It's taking from other people to make it, and that's kind of where the issue is.
So it's just creative copying.
Yeah.
So all right, let me ask you this. If you were an artist and you had a vast portfolio of your own artwork and you use that solely to power your AI, and you decided that you're going to recreate your art in the AI style, is that legitimate?
Yeah, as long as it's only taken from your stuff. Like if that's things that you made that are I'm not going to get into the legal aspect of it. I'm not a lawyer, but if you can guarantee that it's only pulling from your art and you are totally signing off on it, then yeah, that's fine. It gets into it when it's taking other people's art without their consent or knowledge.
So, all right, being a Star Wars fan and a Eagles fan, let me throw a couple examples of non-AI out there where both of those entities have taken what they've modified those and regurgitated it back out to the public strictly for money purposes. There wasn't anything to enhance the art. There wasn't anything to make it better or different or really anything. It was literally, I just want more money, so I'm going to re-release it. Do you have a moral issue with that? With people basically exploiting their own material for money there, trying to, I'm going to say, con people out of buying it again, because I'm one of those idiots who does it.
I was going to say, yeah. Not really, no. I mean, morally, yeah, it's not ideal, right? Like, you shouldn't be scamming people, but these things have value, and there's a reason that, you know, they're getting the money that they are. They wouldn't be re-releasing if they weren't making money. But it's not like fundamentally impacting how we view art, right? It's just someone making a quick buck because they're re-releasing their greatest hits for the 1000th time. It's not like, it would be like if the Eagles released a record that was music that was all samples and they didn't credit anybody. Like, that is what we're talking about here. But everybody loved it and acted like it was their original music.
So are we really to the point where Canva and ChatGPT and Lensa are making us fundamentally reconsider art at this point?
I think we're getting there. And I mean, I think the Lensa specifically, at least in my sphere, really took a lot of people by storm of like, this is awesome. Look how cool I look. I'm a cowboy. I'm a robot. But then it came out of how it really works, and everyone was like, oh, so it's not magic. It's not a computer making, like, it's not a computer coming up with this art itself. It's a computer interpreting other forms of art, stealing and chopping it up, and then mashing it into one new thing. And that was kind of where the issue came in. So I think it is, we're getting there. We're getting there, right? And I have, like, a soapbox I wrote on here, but looking at things like the Indiana Jones 5 trailer, where it's a wholly digital younger Harrison Ford, and you really can't tell the difference. Like, we're now there where in movies these CGI creations are getting close enough where you can't really tell the difference. You know, we're past the days of Rogue One where it's zombie Tarkin and all that.
That was terrible.
But we're getting to the point where the CGI creations or de-aging in movies is becoming so realistic that it's becoming legitimately hard to tell the difference. And it's, you know, between that and the AI art generation, it's like, where is there room for people at this point, for the human touch of it all? And that's what really, you know, interests me and kind of scares me.
So, for years now, before AI existed, before computer-generated graphics in movies and TV existed, people have been using makeup to make you look older or make you look younger. That never caused us to question the purpose of the place of art in the world. Why would de-aging someone digitally cause that kind of conflict in the art world now?
Well, because for makeup, like, you have to apply that, right? It's a physical thing you have to do. With this, it's less about the de-aging and more about the, like, making someone young again so you can make more movies with them. Like, Harrison Ford is like 80 years old. He can't be Indiana Jones like he was in the 80s. But if we can de-age him and, like, make him look young again, even though he's an old man in real life, we can keep making these movies and keep pumping them out. That's where I think the issue is. When you're doing old age makeup or trying to make someone look young with makeup, it's a little bit different because you still know underneath that makeup is still the person, right? Whereas with this, it's not. It's a robot.
So, okay, I will counter that with Chris Pine in Star Trek. So they didn't use makeup. They didn't use digital de-aging. They just changed the actor and they relaunched the entire franchise. So it happens. There's different methods of this happening in doing what they did, because they did the same thing with Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
Where they didn't even bring Mark Hamill in to play the role or even to do the voice, because in Boba Fett, whatever, Book of Boba or
the
Mando
Mandalorian
2.5
episode.
or In that episode where he comes in, his voice is even digitally redone by an AI voice manipulating.
And now Darth Vader, James Earl Jones, is no longer the voice. It's all signed over to AI.
So he signed it over, and they can generate James Earl Jones' voice through AI. I'm struggling to understand where the issue is with that.
I think when it comes to, we'll use James Earl Jones as the example. When you get into like a vocal performance, when you get into the human element of it, there are things that he might do when he does a read for the fifth take that he does something different, and it's way better, right? And it was a fluke, but hey, he read it this way, and that's the line we're going to use. When you get it with AI, I don't think they're going to be able to do, like, there's that human element where you can get that random spark of creativity or performance that elevates a role more than it would just be if it was a human doing it. I think it's really that loss of the human element that I think is the dangerous part.
Well, and I think the ultimate goal of AI is to not have the human element injected into it, but have its own unique element injected into it. So I think you still have the potential for that. It didn't just have James Earl Jones record every word in the English dictionary and it just assembles them together like a really bad AI.
They should do that. That'd be pretty funny.
It basically recorded his inflections and his ability to say certain syllables. It was a much more sophisticated thing than just recording words. And then the AI assembles those sounds, but it doesn't do it the same way every time.
But, like, isn't that weird? Like, James Earl Jones is still alive, right? And unfortunately, he's going to die one day. But they're still going to use that after he's dead to make Star Wars movies with Darth Vader. Isn't that weird? It's like putting him in the ghost in the machine.
You know what? They embalmed Lennon's body and they stuck it on display in the public square for decades.
Yeah, but they didn't Weekend at Bernie's him like a puppet in a movie after he was dead. Like, I don't know. It's something about like when it comes to real life people being like turned into AI generated things, whether it be the Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones 5 or James Earl Jones and now with Darth Vader. When you're taking real people that are in real life and harnessing them using AI for creative things, it doesn't sit right with me. It just seems strange. I don't know.
Well, and you know what? To play devil's advocate here, James Earl Jones wasn't just James Earl Jones who was the voice of Darth Vader. There was so much audio work that went into that voice that it wasn't just him talking into a microphone. So there was already more to it than just James Earl Jones. If they can get that out of a computer and James Earl Jones doesn't have to show up and he already got his paycheck.
Yeah, but like, sure, there are other elements, but his voice is still the core of it, right? So if he died in the world where we don't have AI, that'd be it.
So I will counter that argument with every other element, every other example of Star Wars that Darth Vader shows up in and it's voiced by someone beside James Earl Jones. It's not believable.
I don't know, man. We got to figure something out then. Like, at a certain point, you got to, like, the real world has to have some kind of impact. Like, we can't, like, I don't know. Was Carrie Fisher alive when they did that Rogue One thing? I think she was at the time, right? Like, that's so weird. It's so weird that these are real people that are aging, that we are just plucking, like, the best version of them and putting them in, like, CGI. And now with the voices is, like, eternalized. I don't know. It freaks me out.
Well, all right. So I'll give you a different angle on that. So you have, as an actor, especially a female actor, you have a finite lifespan that the industry will tolerate your aging to, right? So if you get to a point, let's say you're 50, okay? The number of roles that you run into when you're 50 are severely limited. If someone could extend their acting career and their opportunity to make money in the business by allowing digital manipulation of their features, don't you think that's at least a worthwhile endeavor for it?
Yeah, I guess, but like, do we just want to completely give in to like ageism and not try to fix it? Like, do we just want to submit to like the industry-wide like issue? I don't know. It just seems like we're compromising just to not have to like tackle the real problem head on.
Well, and I agree that it's a problem that needs to be tackled. But in the meantime, you're robbing people of opportunities if you take that tool away.
Yeah, but you're robbing them of opportunities by like being ageist too. So it's like,
I agree, but the problem is a role may require somebody of a certain age to be convincing.
wouldn't you be taking away opportunities from potentially another actress that is right for the part if we're going to instead use AI or robot Carrie Fisher instead of recasting someone that might be good at it?
It's possible, but if you were doing a Star Wars film that was after Rogue One, and you needed Princess Leia in there, now granted it's a little different because she's passed away. But if you needed someone that's age appropriate who was that actor, wouldn't it be easier and more convincing to age reduce that actor so they could do that role?
No.
Well, why not? Because then you'd wind up getting like somebody who looks nothing like Han Solo showing up in a Han Solo movie. Okay,
That's true. That movie had other problems. I think that was, I don't know. We're not, this is not the Solo podcast, but I don't know. For me personally, I think it should be a recasting. I don't think it should be using AI. People cling, especially when it comes to Star Wars and properties like it, people cling to that past so hard. The past, what did Kylo Ren say? Kill it if you have to. Like, I think, I don't know, we're getting like, it's like the metatextual level of this, but I think like we can't just like keep digging up these people and putting them into computers and like Indiana
no,
Jones.
but you can. That's the point. You
that's
can.
that's the beauty of it. We can. We never have to move on.
Nobody has to die now.
No one's ever really gone. I don't know, man. I guess we'll see when Indiana Jones 5 comes out and they just make a whole movie with CGI Harrison Ford and call it a day.
Okay. So you
Hey, man,
went through-
support your local artist, all right, before the robots come for us all.
So that's really what you're getting at here. The risk that you're seeing here is that it could severely negatively impact actual artists with what.
Yeah, it's like the old auto factories, right? Once they figured out how to automate all that stuff, all those people got fired. If we can automate writing a script for a movie, the people that are in the movie, their voices, the effects, if we can automate all that stuff, we don't even need people anymore. And at a certain point,
so that's a twisted idea of what history is. When they automated factories, people, instead of doing menial, repetitive tasks, were trained to do better tasks. What killed auto factories were unions that kept trying to get more and more money for people. Okay, so let's just put history aside for a second there and not distort it that much.
it would still be the same outcome, though. With if we found a way to automate all this stuff, where people couldn't tell the difference, we wouldn't need people to do it anymore. And
No,
I think,
but instead of being a makeup artist, you become a digital effects artist.
what if they don't want to do that? What if they like makeup? They shouldn't be forced to change because of.
So then you work in stage, okay?
they go work at Walmart.
They're not digitally enhancing anybody on the stage in a play, okay?
Not yet. We have holograms.
You're killing me.
I'm just saying it's something to think about. It's really important that we keep the human element in these things because that's where we get sparks of creativity that you couldn't get from a robot. There's things that they don't understand. There's ways to perform, ways to say things, ways to create that AI will never know.
Until we get to the self-aware AI, and then you got to worry about other things.
Yeah, then they're coming here and they're going to get me first. They're going to turn me into AI sausage.
You picked over most of your soapbox here. Was there anything else that you wanted to sum up there?
No, that's pretty much it. Watch out. Just be weary. Anything AI, I think you should be weary. Make sure you're making sure where this stuff is coming from. Don't just look at it like it's like science magic. It's not. All these things have to come from somewhere, real tangible things.
I agree. And to be honest with you, the point of support your local artist, I absolutely agree with. That's why one of the things that I really enjoy when we go to these comic book shows and these pop culture shows is interacting with some of these artists, looking at what they're doing, watching what they're doing live, communicating with them, talking to them, what inspires them. I find that to be one of the most rewarding things of going to these shows and actually seeing the brilliance that's out there in a lot of the young artists today.
Absolutely. I don't really have any artistic talent, so I have a lot of like admiration for people.
You have a
that
lot
can,
of pent-up frustration.
yeah,
On
why couldn't it be me? I want to use a robot. No, but people that can just pick up a pen and just make something brilliant. Like it's incredible, and I just think that we need to make sure that sticks around. Also, when you're going to these shows, make sure that whoever you're buying from isn't using Lensa to just make this art and sell it to you, because that is for sure going to happen. Because people will try to swindle you. So just think about it.
All right. I think that was all we had today, unless you were...
No, that was it.
You still worked up? You get all off your chest?
Hey, man, I think we fixed it.
Okay.
As with every show, we've solved all the problems.
You know what? We didn't end with doom and gloom.
That's true. We
though.
led with it, and then we worked our way back.
There you go. A little reverse psychology there. All right, so that was it for the show today. Before we do go, I do want to once again ask that you subscribe to the podcast. Audio versions of this podcast can be found listed as Insights into Tomorrow. Audio and video versions of all the network's podcasts can be found listed as Insights into Things. We are available on Pandora, Castro, Stitcher, Amazon, anywhere you get a podcast. I would also ask you to write in, give us your feedback. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. We do stream on Twitch 5 days a week at twitch.tv/insightsintothings. If you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you do get a free monthly Twitch Prime subscription. We'd appreciate if you threw that our way. You can find us on Instagram at Insights Into Things, or you can find links to all that and more on our website at www.insightsintothings.com. That's it. Another one in the book.
Stay safe out there, everybody.
Bye.
Podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Your hosts are Joseph and Madison Whalen, a father and daughter team making their way through the challenges of the teenage years.
Welcome to Insights into Teens. This is episode 165, Assertiveness. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my confident and assertive co-host, Madison.
You know, I really think you're just calling me out at this point. Anyway, hi, everybody.
I am trying to bring out the best in you. If you think it, you can be it, right?
Sure.
Tough crowd.
I know.
So how was your week this week?
A bit weird.
Yeah, mine too. So I was homesick with a migraine, and you wound up coming home sooner than you expected with some stomach issues.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but I've been playing catch up all week since then.
Yeah, I mean, I was off Wednesday because they told me they had, excused...
Tuesday.
No, I wasn't off Tuesday. I was off Wednesday. Tuesday was when I wasn't feeling well. They gave me an off day for Wednesday.
Oh, wait. Was I out Tuesday?
Yes.
So it wasn't Monday. I'm so confused. I really am.
Yeah, it's Thursday now.
I need this week to be over just so I can reset the week.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're feeling better now?
It's still kind of iffy, but, I was good enough to go to school today.
Okay. Did you make it through the day okay?
I survived.
Okay. Well, sometimes that's the most we can hope for, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, today we're talking about assertiveness. So assertiveness is about communication and confidence. Being able to convey your needs, thoughts, and desires in a way that is constructive and acceptable is a key part of any interaction with other people. On today's episode of Insights into Teens, we'll take a look at what it means to be assertive, the benefits that come from being assertive, and the techniques you'll need to be more assertive. But before we do that, I would like to take a moment to encourage our listening and viewing audience, if you don't already do so, to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Teens. You can find audio and video versions of all the network's podcasts listed as Insights into Things. And we're available anywhere you can get a podcast these days, Apple, Spotify, Google, etc. I would also encourage you to write in, give us your feedback, tell us how we're doing, give us your show suggestions. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. We can be found on Twitter at insights_things, or you can find links to all of our social media on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. Shall we start?
Sure.
Here we go. So once again, we're digging deep into the well of kidshealth.org for today's topic. So what is assertiveness? Assertiveness is a healthy way of communicating. That's the bottom line. It's the ability to speak up for ourselves in a way that is honest and respectful. Every day we're in situations where being assertive can help us, like asking someone on a date, approaching a teacher with a question, or doing well on a job or a college interview. Being assertive doesn't come naturally to everyone. Some people communicate in a way that's too passive, while other people have a style that may be too aggressive. An assertive style is kind of the happy medium between these two. So here's what it means to be assertive. It means you can give an opinion or say how you feel. You can ask what you want or what you need. You can disagree respectfully. You can offer your ideas and suggestions, or you can say no without feeling guilty, or you can speak up for someone else.
Why being assertive matters. An assertive communication style can help us do the things we want to do. But it goes further than that. Being assertive shows we respect ourselves and other people. People who speak assertively send the message that they believe in themselves. They are not too timid and they're not too pushy. They know that their feelings and ideas matter. They're confident. People who are assertive tend to make friends more easily. They communicate in a way that respects other people's needs as well as their own. They tend to be better at working out conflicts and disagreements, and people who give respect get respect in return.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very assertive, 1 being not very assertive, where do you think you fall on that scale?
2.5.
That's kind of low there.
Yeah.
Do you think that low level of assertiveness has an impact on the way that people treat you or things, the way you interact with others, or maybe even a lack of opportunities that you normally would have if you were a little bit more assertive?
Yeah, pretty much. I've had so many instances recently that have made me realize that, wow, I am not that assertive and I do not speak up for my own needs. I have one of the best things, it's probably not anything to do with me being assertive, but when I was at the orthodontist appointment, I was actually glossed over, they forgot I was there, they jumped over me. So that was fun because I waited for another 30 minutes before they actually started working on me. That was fun. I've had various incidents in school where I've refused to say anything, and really I've also just recently noticed that my general interactions with people, I kind of just apologize for things that I don't think I needed to apologize for. I just feel weird with people giving me stuff.
So, do you know why you're passive? Is it that or why you're not assertive? Is it that you're an overly passive individual? Are you just non-confrontational? Are you uncomfortable talking to people? What do you think is the root cause of your lack of assertiveness?
I guess it can technically be all 3 things you listed. I'm not a very confrontational person. I try not to. I don't really think I'd want to, try to confront somebody. That's not really how I roll. I don't really like to talk to people all that much, and I've realized that I also am kind of sort of a people pleaser in a way. As much as I don't want to be as much of a people pleaser as I am, I feel like I can tend to be like that sometimes.
So, is it something where you don't stick up for yourself, or you don't feel like you're deserving of the things that you think you should be assertive on? Is it a self-doubt? Is it a confidence issue, or a lack of confidence? Or are you just a naturally shy and withdrawn person?
Honestly, I do think it is a lack of confidence. We've talked about that on the podcast before, and as much as I'd like to say I'm a confident person, there are just certain things that I'm like, okay, never mind then.
Okay. Is this something that you think you'd like to improve?
Yeah, seeing like the various things that happen and the fact that like it'd be real nice if I could be a little more assertive and, you know, at least learn that lesson. I'd really like to find a way to do so.
So who in life that you associate with now, or that you spend any time with, who would you think is assertive? Appropriately assertive, we'll say.
I guess I'll go with I'll go with you.
Okay.
At some points.
All right, you got to qualify that.
Well, like, thing is, you're a very assertive person and you don't like it when, like, you don't feel like you're being treated right. And, like, you've told Mommy and I in certain instances where if we're not being treated right, you gotta stick up for yourselves or I'm gonna do it.
So that's a very good point. So do you think it's appropriate to be assertive, or do you think it's inappropriate to be assertive?
Well, I guess it depends on the amount of assertiveness and, like, the level of appropriateness when it comes to it, because it's like, in certain things, yeah, I wish I would say more stuff because it's like, it's an issue that I feel could be solved, so if I actually spoke up about it, it'd be fixed. But then when it comes to, like, more extreme levels of being assertive and immediately saying my way, then, like, I could come off being more aggressive, and I could be seen as being the bad guy in the situation.
So you had a very good situation last year in school where assertiveness had a surprisingly positive effect for you. And we talked about it on the podcast before. So you had a substitute in one of your classes, and the substitute said something that was gender inappropriate, we'll say. And that bothered you. And you were assertive in that disgruntled nature. Tell us about that. You know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Talk about that for a little bit and tell me how it felt when you were, when that assertiveness kicked in for you. Why did it kick in then, but it doesn't other times? And what was the ultimate outcome? Was it what you thought it was going to be?
Well, basically what ended up happening was, I got uncomfortable with the idea, and when my teacher was back, I kind of let them know because it was bothering me, and, you know, they were very supportive and on my side and were willing to let me, go, and were willing to, like, try to make a difference about it. So I was called down to the office, and basically we talked about the incident, and I, like, wrote something down. So, you know, there was some progress from it.
So what caused that assertiveness in that case? Was it Mommy and Daddy you came home and told us about it? Was it me being overly assertive and telling you to do something about it? Or was this something that you took the initiative on yourself?
I guess it was kind of both. I was kind of motivated by when I told you and what you told me to do, and then it was kind of just like I decided to finally do it on my own.
And were you pleased with what that outcome was?
Yeah. I was, yeah.
How did you feel when you exercised that assertiveness?
Well, I guess I I felt good because, I was finally able to, like stick up for something, and, I felt good afterwards.
Yeah, and I think, if nothing else, the important lesson to be learned from that specific example is you have a right to those feelings. You have a right to be respected. You have a right to be treated right, to be treated well. And if that doesn't happen and someone disrespects you or someone says something that offends you, you have a right to speak up and defend yourself. And yeah, there's a certain amount of confidence that you have to have in order to take that initiative, but you have that right no matter what. So you should never let someone put you in a position like that or disrespect you like that without saying something. And you do it respectfully, like you did in this case here, and you get a positive outcome from that. So it's important to understand that assertiveness is about communication. And, like we said in the read-through, communication with assertiveness through communication is about respect. It's about giving respect, getting respect in return. And assertiveness is kind of the highway to get you to that point. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the problems with being too passive. We'll be right back.
Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Talking to real teens about real teen problems. Explore issues from braces to puberty, social anxiety to financial responsibility. Each week, we talk about the topics concerning today's youth. We look at how the issues affect teens, how to cope with these issues, and how parents, friends, and loved ones can help teens handle these challenges. Check out our video episodes on youtube.com/insightsintothings. Catch our audio versions on podcast.insightsintoteens.com or on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens. Today we're talking about assertiveness, and now we're going to talk about the problems of being too passive. So Paula has a style that's too passive. If you ask Paula what movie she wants to see, she's most likely to say, I don't know, what do you want to see? She usually lets others decide things, but later she regrets not saying what she wanted. It bothers her that her friends do most of the talking. But when Paula tries to break into the conversation, she speaks so softly that others talk over her without realizing. People who act too passively often end up feeling taken advantage of. They may begin to feel hurt, angry, or resentful. When you hold back what you think and feel, others don't get to know or understand you as well as they could. The group doesn't benefit from your input or ideas. If you start to feel like your opinions or feelings don't count, it can lower your confidence and rob you of the chance to get recognition and positive feedback for your good ideas. It can even lead to feeling depressed.
Now, of course, there's also trouble with being too aggressive. Janine has a style that's too aggressive. Janine has no trouble speaking her mind. But when she does, she comes across as loud and opinionated. Janine dominates the conversation, often interrupts, and rarely listens. If she disagrees with you, she lets you know, usually with sarcasm or a put-down. She has a reputation for being bossy and insensitive. People who come across as too aggressive can find it difficult to keep friends. They may dominate conversations or give their opinions too boldly and forcefully, leaving others feeling put off or disrespected. People with an aggressive style may get other people to do things their way, but many times they end up being rejected or disliked. they often lose the respect of others.
So why isn't everyone assertive? So Ben has an assertive style. When you ask for Ben's opinion, he gives it honestly. If he disagrees with you, he'll say so, but in a way that doesn't put you down and make you feel wrong. Ben is interested in your opinion too. He listens to what you have to say. Even when Ben disagrees with you, you can still feel he respects your point of view. Why do some people have assertive communication styles when others are more passive or aggressive? Part of it's just personality. The habits we develop or the experiences we have are another part. But we also learn to be assertive, passive, or aggressive from watching how others act, especially the people who raise us.
So here are some things that can influence people to act too passively. And we've talked about a number of these already. A lack of confidence in themselves or the value of their opinions. Worrying too much about pleasing others or being liked. Worrying whether others will disagree with or reject their ideas and opinions. Feeling sensitive to criticism or hurt by past experiences when their ideas were ignored or rejected. And not developing the skills of being assertive.
Things that can influence people to act too aggressively include being overconfident, focusing too much on getting their needs met and their opinions across, not learning to respect or consider other people's views or needs, and not learning listening skills or how to ask for input from others.
So things that can lead people to act assertively or just right include self-confidence, believing their opinions count, their ideas and feelings matter, and they have the right to express themselves. Being resilient, or being able to deal with criticism, rejection, and setbacks. Respecting the preferences and needs of others. Having role models for assertiveness, and knowing their ideas were welcomed or assertiveness rewarded in the past. So it's worthwhile to kind of run down these and just take a look at some of the reasons for acting too passively. We've already talked about a lack of confidence in yourself. Do you value your opinions? Do you think your opinions matter?
I mean, yeah, I do have a value in my opinions and behind closed doors. I speak very passionately about what I believe in. So I definitely hold my opinions to a high standard.
I would agree with that. You already said you're a people pleaser, so worrying too much about pleasing others or being liked. So the pleasing others part, I think we can certainly check that box. What about being liked? Are you concerned about other people liking you? And is that something that makes you more passive?
I mean, I wouldn't mind if people liked me, but I guess they may not be my biggest concern. I know I can't get everybody to like me, and I'm not I want to be friends with everybody. So I wouldn't say that's as big of a concern.
Okay. What about disagreement or rejection? Do you worry that others will disagree with what you might have to say or might reject you for what you do say when you're assertive?
Yeah, I'm kind of scared, especially when I talk to teachers. If I ask them things, I'm terrified of them saying no. For no real good reason, I guess. I get scared whenever I have to ask my teachers something and it's a yes or no question, because I don't know, I guess I associate no with being a much more negative answer, and I'm just somewhat terrified of it.
Well, and let's put things into perspective. These aren't life and death questions you're asking. They're not pass or fail. They're not going to fail you, right? So what's the worst thing that a no could do?
The thing that I want just doesn't happen.
Right. But if you don't ask, it's probably not going to happen anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, Wayne Gretzky once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. He was a famous hockey player.
Yep.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you don't ask that yes or no question, it's always going to be no. If you ask it, there's a fair chance it might be yes. So that's something to keep in mind when you're struggling with that.
Yeah.
What about criticism? Are you sensitive to criticism? Have you been hurt in the past when you've expressed yourself? Were your ideas ignored or rejected? Is that something that's sort of in the back of your mind in these situations?
Well, I mean, I definitely think I'm able to handle criticism. As long as, it's proper criticism, I feel like I can certainly handle criticism in a passive way. Having my ideas kind of ignored and rejected, it probably hurts a bit more. So
I think that, that hurts everybody's ego and opinion when their ideas are rejected. But when your ideas aren't even heard and they don't even get a chance to be rejected, how does that make you feel? If like your thoughts, like you have all these great thoughts, you've got this incredibly creative personality and creative brain, and you express that in various ways. If you didn't express that and you kept that all bottled up inside, doesn't that have its own negative connotations and consequences?
I guess so. I mean, like, I really do enjoy creating stuff, and I like having the outlet for it, and I can definitely say that if I didn't have that outlet and it was all just kind of stuck in my mind, yeah, it would probably be pretty negative.
Yeah, so I think maybe you exhibit some of the symptoms that we have here, but I don't think any of the things that you exhibit are an impossible obstacle to overcome. So I really think it literally is just about building the skill set for it. Do you exhibit, let's take a look at the too aggressive. Do you exhibit any of these? Are you overconfident? Obviously, that's not going to be an issue in this case here. We're still working on our confidence levels. Do you focus too much on getting your needs met and getting your opinion across?
Probably not my needs, because I recently had the development of the stomach problems. I refused to go to the nurse, and like at the end of the day, it was like, yeah, you probably should have gone to the nurse earlier. So it's like, yeah, I don't hold my needs as high as I probably should.
Yeah, that we need to work on. How about not learning to respect or consider other people's views?
I wouldn't say that. I personally really respect other people's views and opinions, and I don't like want to not consider them. Like, you and I have our like healthy arguments.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're covered on this one here. I think you're just to the point where you're just right for your respect for others and their needs. What about listening skills or taking input from other people? Do you think you're open-minded with that?
Yeah, and in fact, I'm actually kind of an outlet for a lot of my friends to kind of talk about stuff with them, because I'm a good listener, and asking for my input on others. Occasionally I'll show people like work I've done or stuff I've done and ask for their opinion on them.
Yeah, so based on this criteria of too passive and too aggressive, you're kind of in the middle, which is kind of where you need to be. So I would probably grade you higher. You said you were a 2.5 on that scale of 1 to 10. I'd probably put you at about a 4. You're probably a little below average, but I think you're much better off than you think you are when it comes to assertiveness, especially when it comes to things that are important to you. When something is important to you and it's something that you believe in deeply, you can be assertive. You're passive most of the time, but there's those few causes that you'll get behind that demonstrate that assertiveness. And again, it's one of those things where it's a matter of practice. I didn't get to be loud and obnoxious like I am now. I mean, you know me, when it comes, especially if we're talking about something Disney and, Disney, my expectations for Disney aren't met. I tend to be overly assertive when it comes to stuff like that.
Yep.
When it's things where it's protecting my family or it's costing me money or something like that, I tend to be very aggressive when it comes to stuff like that. But that comes with practice. I've had years of practice dealing with that stuff. And in my line of work, I have to deal with vendors all the time. And if you're passive with vendors, it costs the company hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars if you don't do it right. So it's one of those things that took years to get to. But it's definitely a learned, acquired skill. So we just have to practice more. I think you do it when it's important, when it really matters. You're assertive. And that's the most important thing. So we're going to take another break. We're going to come back and we'll talk about how to be more assertive. We'll be right back.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens. We are talking about assertiveness. So how can you be more assertive? That's, I guess, the important question here. Being assertive is a matter of practicing certain communication skills and having the right inner attitude. Some people are naturally more skillful when it comes to being assertive. Others need a little bit more practice. But everyone can improve, and here's how. Start by considering which communication style, assertive, passive, or aggressive, comes closest to yours. Then decide whether you need to work on being less passive, less aggressive, or simply need to build on your naturally assertive style.
So some tips to work on being less passive and more assertive include paying attention to what you think, feel, want, and prefer. You need to be aware of these things before you can communicate them to others. Notice if you say, I don't know, or I don't care, or it doesn't matter when someone asks what you want. Stop yourself. Practice saying what you'd prefer, especially on things that hardly matter. For example, if someone says, would you like green or red? You can say, I'd prefer the green one, thanks. You should also practice asking for things. For example, can you please pass me the spoon? I need a pen. Does anyone have an extra? Can you save me a seat? This builds your skills and confidence for when you need to talk for something more important. When you need to ask for something more important. You should also give your opinion. Say whether or not you liked a movie you saw and why. Practice using I statements such as I'd like, I'd prefer, or I feel. You should also find a role model who's good at being assertive, not too passive and not too aggressive. See if you can imitate that person's best qualities. And finally, you should remind yourself that your ideas and opinions are as important as everyone else's. Knowing this helps you be assertive. Assertiveness starts with an inner attitude of valuing yourself as much as you value others.
So to work on being less aggressive and more assertive, try letting others speak first. Notice if you interrupt. Catch yourself and say, oh, sorry, go ahead, and let the other person finish. Ask someone else's opinion, then listen to the answer. When you disagree, try to say so without putting the other person's point of view down. For example, instead of saying, that's a stupid idea, try something like, I don't really like that idea. Or instead of saying, he's such a word that I don't want to say on here, try saying, I think he's insensitive. And again, find a role model who's good at being assertive, not too passive, not too aggressive, and see if you can imitate that person.
Even naturally assertive people can build and expand their skills. To work on improving a naturally assertive style, you should find role models who are good at being assertive, not too passive, not too aggressive. See if you can imitate their best qualities. You'll notice this is the same tip we gave for helping with a style that's too passive or too aggressive. That's because we never stop learning. Notice when you're best at being assertive. People behave differently in different situations. Many people find it's easy to be assertive in certain situations, like with friends, but more challenging in others, like with teachers or when meeting new people. In tougher situations, try thinking, what would I say to my close friends?
Sorry, I was joking there.
Sorry.
When you speak assertively, it shows you believe in yourself. Building assertiveness is one step to becoming your best self, the person you want to be. And I think that's an important aspect of things to keep in mind here is the idea of being assertive is about improving yourself. It's about learning, it's about respect, it's about self-confidence, and all those things combined help to make you a better person. Do you want to be more assertive in your day-to-day life?
Honestly, yeah. I don't want to be too assertive to the point where I don't listen to other people's opinions, but I'd like to be more assertive than how I am now, in which I kind of just don't mention a lot of my own opinions, and it'd be nice to be more assertive in certain situations rather than just being assertive in only a few.
So after talking about this, do you envision situations where your lack of assertiveness may have caused you a disadvantage, or you may have lost out on things because you weren't assertive?
Well, the best example I can think of is even though I technically didn't really lose out too much, but basically what ended up happening was I had a history project. And it was a big poster. It was going to be due in a week, and we had a lot of stuff that we had to do for it. And the thing was, it was partner-based. And you got got one partner each, and you can only work with one other person, basically. There were 11 students.
That math doesn't work out very well.
No, it doesn't.
Shame it wasn't math class. They probably could have figured that part out.
Yeah. And I was the one person that didn't get a partner. And, I kind of didn't really like that because I was put under a lot of stress at first because it was well, I feel like I'm doing the work of two people, so that's just great.
Right.
With the same amount of time. And even when you guys said hey, maybe you should mention something to your teacher, I kind of didn't I kind of didn't, and you guys actually had to step in for me.
I mean, how did that work out?
Well, I was given extra time if I needed it, but
which you didn't.
Yeah, but he ended up being sick at one point, so he gave us an extra day anyway. So it's
Okay, that was convenient.
Yeah.
So that's a good example of a situation where had you been more assertive, maybe you could have rectified that instead of having to be burdened by being the only person working on that project or by getting extra credit for being the only person. So I think the important thing to understand is there are times that not being assertive can be disadvantageous for you. And I'm not saying you need to be assertive all the time. And I think for the most part, this being a glaring exception, for the most part, when it's important, you assert yourself. If it's something that you need, something that you want, something that bothers you, you rise to the occasion. You're not assertive all the time. maybe you could be more assertive. But I think in those times that it's important that, and you stand up for the things that you believe in, your assertiveness comes out. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say that, like, especially when it concerns issues that I care deeply about, yeah, I can certainly be much more assertive.
And I'll tell you, even the stuff that's not that important, if we're working, if you come to me and you have a creative project you're working on, stuff you were doing for mommy for her birthday, for instance, you have your creative ideas, you come to me, you pitch them to me, and I'll, as delicately as possible and as creatively as possible, critique them. And I'll give you my opinion on them. And when you don't agree with my opinion, you don't have a problem disagreeing with me. And then we'll talk it out and, we'll respect each other's opinions. So even on situations where it's not that important, you still demonstrate your assertiveness. And I'm sure that comes from a comfort level that you have with me, knowing that you can have those kinds of discussions with me and we're not going to get angry at each other or anything like that. I think the important thing is you have to get to that comfort level with others as well. And I think if you do, you'll find that being assertive is a two-way street. People are going to be assertive with you. You'll be assertive with them. That assertiveness builds that respect. When you come to me with an opinion and your opinion differs from mine, I still respect your opinion. In fact, when you make your point, that builds that respect. The fact that you can stand behind it, you don't back down. If you really think that something should be a certain way, I respect you for that. And other people will too. It's difficult using myself or mommy as examples there because of that level of comfort. But you have to believe that you'll get to that level of comfort where you'll have that respect with others. So that was all we have. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll get your closing thoughts.
All right.
We'll be right back.
All right, so to everyone out there, I just wanted to say that assertiveness is something that is very important for you personally, and it will really help you throughout your life. It's important that you find a perfect balance, much like everything in life, because, you can't always have it one way or the other. Being too passive could cause you to be stepped on, could cause you to never be able to have your ideas expressed thoroughly, and thus you're always going to be unsatisfied. Being too aggressive could cause you to not consider other people's opinions and could cause other people to lose respect in you. So really, it's important to find a perfect balance where you can respect other people's opinions but also respect your own at the same time.
Okay. Sage advice as always.
Thank you.
That was it. Before we do go, though, I do want to once again invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. Audio versions of this podcast can be found listed as Insights into Teens. Audio and visual versions of all the network's podcasts can be found listed as Insights into Teens. Nope, Insights into Things. Scratch that. Sorry.
Isn't that like the second time you've messed that up?
Yeah, and I have a script. I have a script and I have a screen here that I have it up on. So, and I've done 165 of these. So you think I'd have it down by now? Anyway, we would also invite you to write in, give us your feedback. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcasts. You can find us streaming 6 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/insightsintothings, as well as YouTube, where you'll find all of our episodes, all of our videos on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings, where you get links to all that and more on our official website at insightsintothings.com. And you.
And don't forget to check out our other two podcasts, Insights and Entertainment, hosted by you and Mommy, in which you guys are actually doing a podcast, so nice. And It's Tonight Tomorrow, our Not Really Monthly podcast anymore, hosted by you and my brother Sam.
All right, that's a sales pitch if I ever heard one.
I know, right?
That's it. Another one in the books.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Your hosts, Joseph and Michelle Whalen, a husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics, are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom.
Welcome to that was kind of a sudden intro there.
Sure was.
Kind of cut that off a little abruptly. A little out of practice. Welcome to Insights into Entertainment. This is episode 149. Franklin, my dear, I don't give a Zolocon. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my rested and relaxed co-host, Michelle Whalen.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing today, dear?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am frustrated because my camera 3 is not working and I had to quickly replace it.
I understand.
But other than the technical difficulties, I think I'm doing just
Well,
fine.
that's good.
So been kind of on a hiatus for a while here.
Unintentional.
We just haven't had a lot to talk
Yeah,
about.
we keep kind of trying to, I guess, revamp how we want the show to be, what we want the show to be. And we just haven't really found that right mix of what we actually want to do. We don't want to just regurgitate, the news stories.
We want to add value.
Right.
We want to add value to the things that we talk
Right.
about.
We want to make it so that, also you can go back to a past podcast and re-listen to it again
Right.
and find some entertainment value
Sure.
from it. So,
And I think the weekly cadence got to be too much of a grind. It got to the point where we were struggling to find things. to
right.
include in the
So
show.
it was definitely we want it to be quality, not necessarily quantity. So if it's something where it's
Exactly.
once a month, it's once a month. If it's twice a month, it's twice a month. If it's,
I think at minimum once a month. I think we can come up with
Probably.
enough things to talk
Probably.
about, especially now that convention season's going
yeah,
on.
yeah.
So today we're not really going to be talking about much in the way of news. We're going to be talking about a couple of things that we had attended. We will be talking in our first segment about the Disney 100 exhibition at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. Then the next day, actually, we went to Zolocon. Zolocon.
It's your most favorite convention, toy show to go to.
So we
Just
we
so
have
you
a
can
little
say
bit
that.
We have a little bit of footage from both of those. We'll take a look at those. And then I kind of threw something together real quick for our third segment here. I thought it would be worthwhile, since our last podcast, we talked about swapping the Bobs again and Bob Iger coming back. Thought it'd be kind of interesting to kind of see where things are and what challenges Iger might be facing right now, and just get your opinion on that and how things are going with Disney, since he's come back into the
Sure.
fold. But before we do that, though, I would like to invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can get audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Entertainment, And you can get audio and video versions of all the network's podcasts listed as Insights into Things. You can find us pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast these days, Google, Apple, Spotify, and so forth. I would also invite you to write in, give us your feedback, tell us how we're doing, give us your suggestions on what you'd like us to talk about. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/insights_things. Or you can get links to all that and more on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. Shall we get into it?
Sure.
Here we go. So, Disney 100, Franklin Institute, Philadelphia. We were there
Last weekend.
last weekend, which was that opening
No,
weekend?
it was their second weekend.
Second week.
They
Second
opened
weekend.
the week before.
Right. So we were there early in the morning. We got there. We did the museum. We had a 12:30 time for the exhibit. And they have it in the same exhibit hall they have all the other ones. We've done the Star Wars one. We've done the Marvel one. What are your thoughts? Walk us through it.
So I have to say, if you are a fan of Disney, any aspect of Disney, being in this area, we're very fortunate because this is the only location within the United States that this is going to be. So there are people that are traveling from all over the country to come and see it because this is the only place. So that's kind of special to think that that we're kind of hosting it, even though we're not physically hosting it.
And let's be fair. Since they always do the D23 in California, the least they could do is give the East
right,
Coast something.
exactly. And that's when you think about all of the D23 events and everything else. It's usually always Florida or it's California. So to actually have it, in Philadelphia. So really for anybody that's within, a couple of hours, and you're a Disney fan, this is a look into, behind the scenes stuff that you don't normally get to see. Disney has been doing a lot of different, behind the scenes shows on Disney Plus, like Behind the Vault or all these different shows. There's a couple of different ones.
You mean that show that you started watching again without me? That Disney show?
No, the other one that we already watched.
The other one that you're watching.
No, we already watched it.
Well, I thought you stopped at one point.
That's the attraction one. That's the other one.
I know there was one of them. There was one that you left me out of. I know that.
Well, anyway, there's various different shows that are on that Disney Plus is running, that they've been running, where they give you some of these behind the scene things from the archives. Look at stuff that, unless you work for the Disney Corporation, you've never seen. So this is such an opportunity to be able to see so many different things from so many different decades, going back 100 years really with the company when you think about it, and different aspects of it. So you have the animated part of it, you have the music part of it, you have the attractions, so they break down the whole exhibit into, I think they had it in 10, what did they call it, what did they call it? Why can't I think of the word?
I don't know. What did they call it?
The different themed galleries, the different galleries that, and each gallery had a different theme to it. One was costuming, one was the individual characters, one, like I said, was the music, technology, even showing some of the audio animatronic body parts how they would manipulate a character to make it move. Obviously, then the drawing aspect of it, and even going from the original way that the movies and cartoons were drawn to now the computer animated. How do they make Rapunzel's hair move a certain way? And so they have all these little videos going on.
Algorithms like Google, right?
Right, exactly. So there's a lot to it and so much to really see. And unfortunately, there were so many people there that it's kind of hard to read everything and to look at everything. So fortunately, because we live so close by, it's definitely something that I want to get to again to be able to...
So how long is it actually?
It is actually in Philadelphia until August 27th.
Okay.
So you have quite a while, all of the summer, and all of the spring to get there.
This isn't the only location that they're going to be doing.
Right.
So two other locations.
Two other locations. So in April, it will actually open up in Munich. So it will be going simultaneously with
so they're probably showing
different things. And the one in Munich actually goes until September 3rd. So it goes a little bit beyond the Philadelphia one. And then the dates for London are actually fall of 2023. They actually don't even have their dates open yet. So I'm guessing maybe part of Munich's show and part of Philly's show might end up at the London show, I'm guessing.
So let's talk a little bit about what was on display. You mentioned there's multiple galleries. What were some of the galleries? How were they themed? What were some of the things that were there that kind of stuck out at you? The stuff that jumped.
Sure.
out.
So they start off. They go sort of in a linear fashion, starting with the very beginning of everything and how the Disney company started. And you have the Alice shorts, and then Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and then obviously Mickey Mouse. So that's the progression. So they have some original drawings of all three of those with some videos playing as you're walking through that section. And then they kind of go through, and then it goes on to the whole, Mickey and everything that happened, how he kind of blew up, I guess, and how the company really kind of formed around that and everything. And then they had, the whole music section with the original songs for Snow White and because that was really their first musical. And so they had some of the original sheet music from that, and along with drawings and things like that. So you have that whole aspect. And then they go through the whole character development. How do they develop a character and basically take you through the different iterations of the character. So you have, here's their first sketch of a character, and then where does it go from there? And then to the maquettes, where here's our final model of a character. So now you can actually see it in a 3D form to be able to manipulate it and do other things with it.
So the exhibits themselves, there's a lot of static exhibits that are there. There's a lot of descriptive plaques to read, to give descriptions and stuff like that. But not all of it is static. There's some interactive exhibits that they have there. Can you talk a little bit about the interactive?
Well, the one interactive exhibit wasn't working, which I don't know if it hasn't been set up yet, if it was too early, or if it already broke down, which is kind of a shame if it's only been within the first week. They have a lot of different ones where you can listen to different presentations, and then they have other ones, again, where they had one where it was different colors, and you could pick different colors color schemes, and when you picked certain colors, it would show you which character was associated with that. I really didn't do much of the interactives. I don't know if you guys, because we weren't really walking around
we
together.
kind of blew through a good portion of that because most of the interactive. So the way the exhibit itself is arranged is you have small rooms that are then connected by hallways, and a lot of the interactive listening things and stuff like that are on the walls in those in those walkways. So the problem that I ran into is it was very crowded. Right. So those walkways became bottlenecks.
Right.
So I kind of was rushing to get through those into a more open room. So we skipped a lot of that stuff. Right. Most of the things that we went in and took a look at were just the static. You know, that's the eye pop.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But what I did notice is there's a lot of subtlety in there. There's a like when you walk into the first open room, the room itself is roughly round with large displays in the middle. Well, in the middle of these large projection displays are original novels like Grimm's fairy tales and stuff like that, which were they weren't just like library books.
Right.
These were like the original novels that inspired the stories that Disney did. Which, if you didn't get up there and see those, you would have never realized.
And that was one that I had missed.
Right.
Whereas one of the things that I ended up seeing was a Winnie the Pooh that was from the live action movie. And then they had from the live action Beauty and the Beast movie, they had models of two of the characters from that, and that was kind of like back around a corner. So there were certain things where you had to kind of wait in line to see because, you know, so many people were going to see, but if you went past it, you would have missed it because, you know, they were kind of back in the corner in a certain area.
So they did have a section there for one of the galleries was kind of dedicated to the parks and things that came out of the parks. Talk about that a little bit and what were some of the things that they had?
Yeah, so one of the things was they had one of the original ride vehicles from Peter Pan. So that was really cool to see. And really, that hasn't changed much over the years if you know, have gone to the park. You know, recently it pretty much looks the same. Then one of the bobsleds from the Matterhorn was there as well. One of the other things that was really cool, I don't think you had it in your video, but I know I took a picture of it, was they had the original name tags from when the Disneyland first opened. And I guess when they had first done them, they had numbers on them. And they had the number 1, which was Walt Disney's original name tag, you know, from the park. So that was really kind of interesting. And then they had some other models. So they had one of the dolls from It's a Small World. They had one of the characters from Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, one of the little devils there. One of the other things that was kind of cool was it was a model from... all you Disney fans are gonna yell at me because I'm.
Is it in the movie?
I don't think it was in the movie, but it was the Inner Space ride.
Oh.
But the little model, it's the Doom Buggy. It's, you know, but it was blue because on that ride it was the Omna. I can't think of the ride vehicle, but it looks like it's a little Doom Buggy, except it's blue and there are people in it.
Maddie did catch that.
I was like, oh, look, there's my Doom. Oh, it's not the Doom Buggy. You know, but I knew what it was because I knew they used that same ride vehicle in other rides back in the day.
So of everything that they had there, what was the biggest highlight for you of the entire thing?
Oh, I don't know.
What jumped out at you the most?
I don't know. I don't know if there was any
What was the most impressive thing?
What was the most impressive? Well, I guess the the castle, but that wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just a model of the castle. I think, Walt's name badge, his
Sure,
name tag was
sure.
probably,
From
from a sentimental,
Totally see that. The thing that jumped out at me the most was the model of the Nautilus.
Mm,
Like, it was the hero model that was 12 feet
Right,
long.
right.
And it was monstrous.
right.
That was just impressive to come around the corner and see
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, like everything was like, wow, cool. Like if they would have had something from the Haunted Mansion, that probably would have been
Yeah.
like my
But they didn't, and that was kind of
yeah.
disappointing.
But that's the whole thing is I don't know if
And
other-
it's a shame because it was such a pet project of Walt's.
Right.
To do.
Right.
He was so involved in doing that.
like I would have liked to have seen more stuff with the audio animatronics.
Yeah.
And a little bit more of the history and the technology for that. But again, they had the different movies going on. In one of the movies, one of the clips they had was a behind the scenes of the Haunted
Yeah.
Mansion. So they did have
Well,
that.
let's run the video.
Sure,
You
sure.
Can kind of give us some commentary over the video and point out the things that catch your eye.
Sure. So this was a cute little pre-show, I guess, when you first, walked in.
And it was neatly done because
Uh-huh.
it was when you're there, it's a hologram. It's a multi-screen 3-dimensional hologram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So of course, being able to see, Walt Disney like that was really kind of cool. Kind of creepy, but kind of cool all at the same time.
Everything about it. And when we go into that new project, we believe in it all the way. We have confidence in our ability to do it right, and we work hard to do the best possible job. There's really no secret about our approach. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors, doing new things, because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. We're always exploring and experimenting.
Everybody ready? Then on with the show!
And move along.
Right.
Yeah, so this is the first section that you kind of walk through, and it shows, Oswald. Then this was an area where they had concepts of the different parks, different lands, and of course the Haunted Mansion right there. This was that book section that you were talking about. So this was talking about where they got the inspiration for their different movies and shorts and things like that. And this was, again, the innovation area and the multiplane, a miniature version of the multiplane camera. Talking about, again, that the first animated musical and
And that was
the
neat that
original.
They had the original scores there for it.
Yeah. And the original, record
Yeah.
album.
Yeah, like this is where you kind of you feel the history here. When the pieces are there.
Yeah. And then they had various different costumes from some of their live action. So this was from the Cruella movie.
So that's one of the interactive ones where you can listen to the.
Right. So they kind of had like a little history of Cruella.
What's this?
I don't know, some
science fiction.
some science fiction-y thing, and some dice from a guy that wants to be a pilot, and oh look, it's chicken. No, it's pork.
Well, that's dinner.
And of course BB-8, and these were screen-used props that were here.
Right.
So some, they had a nice little Star Wars section, so it was kind of cool, obviously.
It was little though.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising that it was as small as it was. Here's those books
There's
again.
Those books again.
Yeah, and there were different interactive things with that
Each of them had screens on there.
And then this was the music section, talking about how influential music, and how much a part of music is.
There's that creepy doll.
There's that creepy doll. It's a small world. And
And
ride
this is neat
vehicle.
because it actually lights up. Like there's a shot of the actual
Ride,
there,
yeah.
and they lit up. Ironically enough, the devil not nearly as creepy as the other one was.
Yeah, definitely not as creepy as that. And he's from, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And then this was interesting, so...
In a creepy way.
In a creepy way. I have a story about the doll that we can talk about after the video. And then they had, a little bit of a Marvel section, so that was kind of nice to
When the
be
movie
included.
franchise makes as much as it does, you
have to put something in from that. And then, of course, when you get to the end, there's a gift shop.
There is a gift shop.
They're very Disney of them.
Surprisingly poorly stocked gift shop, though.
Yeah. Not as many exclusive things as I would have expected.
This was neat actually seeing things from the musicals. Too.
Yes, they did a whole, so along with the musical, they also had the Broadway aspect of it. And then here's that
the Nautilus.
The Nautilus.
Like, it's literally 12 feet, 15 feet.
Yeah, yeah.
It's monstrous. And here's a creepy Olaf to go along with the other creepy characters we saw.
Because again, this was part of the Broadway show, and they developed it and made the character. And then this was, this really cool Cinderella's castle. It was kind of towards the end of it with, the fireworks.
Not so loud fireworks.
Not so loud fireworks.
And you never get to watch fireworks when we're at the parks.
I very rarely do.
So this was
I never get to see them from the right angle. I'm usually seeing them from the backside of something because our daughter is not a fan of loud sounds. But now with, AirPods, she could.
Right.
And maybe I'll actually get to see fireworks the next time we go. So what was interesting about that Mickey doll was, again, one of the specials that's on Disney Plus where they kind of do a behind the scenes thing. And this is from one that was from a couple of years ago, so it's not new, but if you go on Disney Plus, you'll find it. They talk about that Mickey doll because when his shorts, became available, there was this woman who sewed this doll and had sent it to Walt, and he loved it so much that he kind of hired her to make them, but she couldn't make them fast enough, so she actually sold the pattern to McCall's, so that's what that doll represented there, where you could go and buy the pattern to make your own Mickey Mouse doll. So that was kind of, an interesting, side note of seeing that and then seeing it on the television show too.
So to wrap it all up, what are your final thoughts on the Disney 100 exhibition at the Franklin Institute?
If you're a fan, you have to go. You can't miss this opportunity, especially if you're somewhere within the East Coast, or if you're out on the West Coast and you want to fly out to Pennsylvania to Philadelphia and make a weekend trip of it. There's obviously enough stuff to do in the area. We're pretty historic in the Philadelphia area. We've had a couple of things happen here, so you could definitely make a week. A long weekend trip. What's nice is that if it's something where you don't want to do the rest of the museum, because if you if you go during the day with the exhibit, you get the rest of the Franklin Institute included in it. But if it's something where you don't want to do that, they do evening hours Thursday through Saturday from 5 to 8 p.m. So it's a little bit less because you're just doing the exhibit. But if you want to have, a full day, then obviously you can do the museum as well as the exhibit. And again, up until August 27th in Philadelphia, Then, unless you're in Munich, then that one starts in April. And then this fall, it'll be in London.
All right. And, like you said, we're going to probably go back again in the evening just for the exhibit.
Right.
Hopefully it won't be as crowded, but fortunately we have plenty of time to do it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about ZoloCon. We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. Welcome back to Insights into Entertainment. Now we get to talk about ZoloCon. Sorry, I can't help myself.
I know.
So, ZoloCon is a sci-fi and fantasy expo that focuses on vintage toys and comics from the 1970s and up. Tell us about it. Tell us about your experience. How did you enjoy it this year?
So this past weekend, it's funny because as far as we knew, they only did it once a year. And then I guess last year or the year before, they started doing it twice a year. Now, this year, they'll actually doing 3 different events. So this happened to be what they consider their winter edition. And it was actually the largest one to date. And we could definitely tell vendors all over the place in various different places, even in some parts of the building we had never even been to before. And every area was jam-packed. I don't think there was really any empty spaces this year.
Usually you'd go through there and you'd see like empty vendor tables or vendors that didn't show up for Sunday or something. Everybody was packed.
Yeah, everybody was there.
You have the main room where the centrifuge is, which is the highlight of the whole thing.
Right.
You have another room at that level and then a hallway that was packed.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the upstairs room.
Right.
Where you've got 2 rooms split by a bar, which, by the way, they had alcohol on the main floor this time.
Right,
so
right.
You can get drinks the whole time and get sloshed while you're buying lots of toys.
Right, right.
And then down on the first floor, they had vendors there, which they'd never had before.
And they were also doing tattoos.
And they were doing tattoos.
There were a couple of different tattoo artists, which that seems to be like the new thing at toy shows and conventions is to have a various tattoo artist. Go buy a Luke Skywalker and get a tattoo while you're here.
So not only did we find the exhibition area downstairs, we also happened to find the restaurant they had there that we never knew they had.
Right. And I think that's relatively new as well. So that might have, been something that they started. Well, I did see the one sign that they were normally open just like Fridays, I guess, during the week. So maybe on the weekends or if they have an event and they know there are going to be people around. Because I can't see just going there for a meal. It's kind of out of the way.
Well, and that's it. The complex that they're in is an office complex.
Right.
There's a school in there. There's a manufacturing in there.
So I could see like on a Friday.
There's a lot of different stuff that's actually in there.
Right.
At what used to be the Brewster Aviation plant before World War II, and then it became the naval testing station as well. So again, Philadelphia, a lot of history just in that one little area there.
Yeah.
How were the crowds?
It was crowded, but it wasn't it wasn't unmanageable. It was because everybody kind of flowed through, and it's done in such a way in the main room, because it's where the centrifuge is. It's a big circular room. They do 2 rows. So they have the inner circle and they have the outer circle.
So it's like a dart.
Yeah. And they leave enough room in between, so you definitely don't feel like you're, getting, claustrophobic. And usually what we end up doing, because there's so much on both sides, is we'll do each aisle, each circle twice. We'll do, the outside. So we look at just that,
So you do the left side, then you do the right side, then you come to the inner circle. Do the
right.
left side, do the
And
right
so that
side.
this way we get to see, everything, so that we're not, oh, did you see that? No, I was looking over here. And I never felt like there wasn't enough room to do that. They do have stairs to get to the upstairs area, but there's also elevators, which were very spacious, because we ended up taking
'Cause
that.
it was like a cargo elevator.
Yeah. So
Which was themed, by the way.
yes, it was. It was space themed, so it was just so.
That was kinda neat.
That part is kind of cool, but they have something for everyone. They have if you're into pops, which that seems to be a
Which I'm not.
big seller. Almost everybody, you'll find a handful or 2 handfuls of vendors that are selling that. Then you have brand new toys that are out. Obviously the vintage toys, and that's what a lot of people obviously are going for. There was the one vendor, I think this was the first time we saw, who does pins.
Yes.
Beautiful pins. So between Maddie and myself, we bought a bunch of different pins.
Well, and even the pendant guy that I had bought the one
Yeah, I was
thing
gonna
at,
say the
which I don't
pendant.
want to talk about because he hasn't gotten his
Right, he
presents yet,
hasn't
but-
gotten his stuff yet.
But the pendant guy that's there who hand makes his own pendants.
Right,
And it was neat because he's there interacting with it. He's not just selling his stuff.
right.
He's soliciting input for what you'd like to see him make
Right,
in his
like
next show.
what would you like me to make? So that's what's always so cool about these events, is it's that unique item that you didn't know existed, maybe, or you did and you're like, the one guy who we've seen, because again, we go to so many of these now that we run into a lot of the same vendors, but
Right.
it's like, okay, well, what do you have for this show? And the one guy, he sells Lego minifigures, and he makes the Lego figures. This time around, I didn't buy a Lego figure from him. He was selling purses and wallets, and he had a Haunted Mansion purse, and I was like, all right, take my money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, again, something you never know what you're going to find when you go. And like you said, part of the whole ZoloCon experience is the venue itself. Just, knowing the history of that building and what happened there. And that was what was kind of cool too this time around, was because we were going to these other areas of the building, there were more pictures and plaques and different historical things about what had happened at that building in the past. So that's
The one
really kind of
thing
cool.
that I had noticed was, while it was vendor heavy, it was kind of light on artists this time around. There wasn't many. Like last time, there was probably 3 or 4 times as many artists
Yeah.
on that inner ring there. Didn't get as many artists this time. So I don't know if it's really it's not a comic book show,
Right,
even though there are guys that are selling comics.
right.
So you don't get a lot of artists. They had the one author there who Maddie had bought her book last time. that
Oh,
were
okay.
there, but not really a lot in the way of artwork,
Right,
which I don't have enough room on my walls right now as it
Mhm.
is, but
right.
kind of noticed that was one of the big changes. They also changed the refreshment area up here
Mm-hmm.
this time because they put the alcohol down where the refreshments were, so you didn't have the seating area there. So
Right.
for someone like me who I can't stay on my feet that long, it was kind of difficult trying to find little nooks and so forth here. And in fact, when we left, I had to send you guys back up for
Right.
the last piece I wanted because I couldn't do all the walking.
Right. Right.
So happy with what you got? Did you get anything that was good?
Yeah, like I said, Maddie and I got a couple of pins. I ended up getting some Star Wars Pyrex, really for you, for lunches. So, interesting, unique things that wouldn't have thought to find.
And cue up the video.
Sure.
We can. This was video footage that we took while we were there, and I had Maddie walk around with the camera for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see what some of the things were that they had.
Yeah, so it's neat to see, because again, here's the big giant centrifuge and various space stuff just there while you're walking around.
But you could see how wide these aisles
Oh,
are. So
yeah.
there's plenty of room
Yeah.
for the aisles, which is nice. So you're not elbow to elbow with people.
Right,
like you are at
right.
Some of the shows.
Right. Some of the sections, with individual vendors, if they had like a little corner and you wanted to go into the corner to see, then it might have been tight. But other than that, for the most part, and there were a lot of people there when we were there, so it wasn't like it was...
And this was Sunday that we were there.
Right. We usually always tend to go on a Sunday.
If we're not going for panels or for celebrities, which we usually don't go for, we'll almost always go on a Sunday. We'll go on the last day of the show because the vendors tend to be a lot more interested in selling their stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
and you have, a bunch of the vendors with homemade,
a couple of vendors with D&D stuff, dice
Right.
and dice towers, which, it's kind of nice to see that coming into its own now.
Right.
I really need to coach her on not to make sudden movements with the camera. A couple of these I had to slow down.
Go slow. Yeah, it's just such a nice, because like the one vendor selling coffee, he wasn't there at this one. So, here was
There's
the
your
pin.
Yeah.
And
ton of pins. Too.
Ton of different types of pins, and more on her website, which is nice. A couple of people dressed up, not a whole lot.
Not a lot.
But, there were some. They were doing a custom toy.
Well, they usually do a costume contest. Did they do that on Saturday? Is that why?
I don't know, maybe, but they were doing a custom toy contest.
Right, like a action figure.
Right.
Toy. Yeah.
Right. So again, lots of different pops.
I was talking to that particular vendor. He said he's got 3,000 pops back at his shop.
Oh, I bet.
Right now.
I bet. And then you have different video games. So if you play any, older systems, there's usually always a couple of different people selling that. Sometimes you get a t-shirt person selling things. The one t-shirt guy who does t-shirt artwork and pins, he happened to be there, so I picked up a t-shirt from him. Maddie picked up another pin of his because I follow him on Facebook, so I knew he had an Owl House, which is one of the shows that she and I watch on Disney Plus. So he had a pin that had come out a couple of months ago. So we knew he was going to be there, so we definitely made a beeline to go and get something from him.
Well,
so.
And the thing that's really nice is that when you have that many vendors there, you don't get a lot of duplicate vendors. You get a lot of variety, a lot of different things to choose from. And the vendors, like the interaction with the vendors, I think since COVID, really, I've noticed, has been very positive. They're very outgoing. They're very engaging now.
Because everybody misses being around people and talking to people and doing this.
And I struck up a conversation with one of the vendors. I was there for 15 minutes just talking about, how the shows have been going and how business has been and, different types of customers. And they're not just vendors. They're people that love the same things that you love too. So it's almost like a community at this point.
Oh,
which is kinda
absolutely,
nice.
absolutely. And that was, they, one of the Facebook groups. They have another ZoloCon Facebook group, and it was one of the organizers of it, and he was just over the moon about how well it went, and that this was their largest attendance to date, and that they couldn't speak, they had so many nice things to say about the vendors that were there, about the guests that were there, about just everything all around, just giving out the love.
It's a great show. It's a great venue. It's not far for us. It's in Warminster.
Right.
So it's 45 minutes?
About 45 minutes for us. Yeah.
So it's not that far from us, and it's just it's a nice day out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of nice to go out there and buy stuff that you can't buy anywhere else.
Right, exactly. And that's what's always, and I think for us now, we've kind of, we've gotten to the point where we just have way too much stuff. You've seen our collection, and it's still, since we did that video, a year ago now, there's been more stuff.
And that was only a small sampling.
That wasn't even all of it. Where we've kind of come to the conclusion, we don't need to buy anything more. Yeah. So for us to go to a show, it's really to see,
it's the experience.
It's the experience of it, or to find that.
Well,
unique...
I'm going to find stuff for other people now. Like I managed to get 2 really cool things for Sam this time.
Right.
That I couldn't get anywhere else. But that's kind of where I'm at.
Right.
Now.
And Maddie ended up picking up a couple of things that she wouldn't have normally been able to find. And the things that I got, again, were that unique, individual, one-of-a-kind
the types
thing.
Of things that I would be looking to add to my collection at this point are things that would require me to mortgage the house. So I'm trying not to add things to my collection at this point.
Right. And or if you find that small little thing that, okay, that's not going to take up, a lot of room, or, or this adds to somebody else, or something to go with D&D, or, something.
Yeah, that's really what I'm looking for now. I was kind of disappointed I didn't find any D&D minis there. Not that I need more minis either.
Right, you don't need more minis either. But that's, that's the thing, is for us, it's also the experience of just going and being with the community.
Absolutely.
And again, this is the type of show where there aren't panels, there aren't the celebrities to go see. It's not like Monster Mania or Wizards or, some of the other shows. It's really...
Fan Expo. It's not Wizards anymore. It'll always be Wizards.
It'll always be Wizards to me, just like Downtown Disney. You can't take that away from me.
All right. So I think we've covered that one pretty well. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna get a feeler for how Bob's doing. The new old Bob. That's what I should have named this. The New Old Bob Show. We'll be right back.
Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Talking to real teens about real teen problems. Explore issues from braces to puberty, social anxiety to financial responsibility. Each week, we talk about the topics concerning today's youth. We look at how the issues affect teens, how to cope with these issues, and how parents, friends, and loved ones can help teens handle these challenges. Check out our video episodes on youtube.com/insightsintothings. Catch our audio versions on podcast.insightsintoteens.com or on the web at insightsintothings.com.
So Bob is back at Disney. Not that Bob, the other Bob.
Right.
So
the original Bob.
We've swapped Bob's back to the old Bob. And he's facing some challenges. He's only supposed to be there for 2 years, kind of a short time to turn things around. Chapek did a brilliant job of running things into the ground in the short amount of time that he was there. One of the first things that Iger's doing now that he's back is apparently slashing 7,000 jobs, and there's 5.5 billion in cost cutting he has to make somewhere. Should I feel bad that Disney's hard up for cash at this point in time?
And that's the thing is, are they really? Because I haven't seen anything where...
Not according to their stock price, they're not.
Right. That's, where it's kind of, huh?
Right. And it's almost imagined, because you look at some of the things that they're running into, and you're running into sluggish box office sales. Like, for instance, that new Quantum Mania movie came out and it tanked at the box office. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, box office sales are down in general since COVID.
Right.
That plus everyone knows that their stuff's going to come out on Disney Plus in a few months. So
right. So why
to go to the box office?
Right.
The streaming business has been hit hard because they've completely flooded the market and turned people off with crap. Really, I mean, they're literally just churning out stuff to put on there.
Right.
And it's not quality stuff. So
the stuff that is good, they cancel after 2 seasons.
Yeah.
There have been a number of shows that Maddie and I have started to watch, and it's like, oh, by the way, this is done now.
Right.
Like, oh, we couldn't even get like a 2nd season or a 3rd season. Like, okay.
Right.
Thanks. So it almost makes you not want to watch something.
Right.
Until there's
it's almost like
3 or 4
Google.
Seasons out.
Like, nobody wants to get... Google comes out with really cool stuff, but as soon as you get into it, they cancel it and it goes away. So nobody wants to do that. And Disney's putting themselves into the same position as well. They're canceling shows that I'm not even watching. Usually I'm the one that kills shows when I watch them and start getting into them.
Exactly.
So I think that 5.5 billion they're talking about really is it's a fictitious number that they think they should be making that. I don't think Disney's losing money. Disney's got more money than God. Mm-hmm. When God needs to put a new world in place, he goes to Disney for a loan.
Is that what it does?
So it's not that Disney's losing money. They're just not making it as fast as they want to.
Okay.
And part of the problem you run into is, you know what? You keep coming out with superhero movies just for the sake of coming out with superhero movies. They finally reached the point of saturation with Marvel, and nobody wants to go see it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, they learned that lesson pretty fast with Star Wars.
Right.
They flooded the market with Star Wars, trying to turn it into another Marvel, and that bit them in the butt really quick.
Right.
So I can't feel bad for Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So the real question comes down to, in 2 years, can they come up with a succession plan for Iger? And really what I have to ask is, do you need a succession plan for Iger? Is he really going to be gone in 2 years? Because given how much his incentive is for success, I don't see him going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I could see him still staying on as a consultant when he's still doing things. But then again, you also have to look at everything that's kind of going on right now in the state of Florida. That's a whole other kit and caboodle of that whole toxicness.
Well, and let's be honest. What's going on in Florida is a temporary thing.
Hopefully.
It's temporary because it's a pissing match between DeSantis and Disney.
Right.
And it really was a pissing match between DeSantis and Chapek.
Right.
And Chapek's out of the picture. And DeSantis is going to be out of the picture in 2024 when he runs for president anyway.
Hopefully.
So it doesn't really, that's not that big a deal. In fact, Disney came out with a statement recently basically saying, we're going to focus on what we do best. We're going to provide the best experience for people, blah, blah. They took the high ground.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't buy into the taunting and the stick poking that DeSantis was trying to draw them into.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically said, look, we operate under numerous jurisdictions and numerous regulations around the world, and we make it work, and we'll make it work here.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I think what's going to happen with this little pissing match between DeSantis and Disney is the taxpayers are going to lose out.
Mm-hmm.
They skirted around the idea of having to take on all that debt for Reedy Creek by just restructuring the zone itself, and now DeSantis has his hand-picked group of
Right, he
board
picked all of
members in
his
there.
board members and everything.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Disney's been supplementing Reedy Creek since it was created.
Mm-hmm.
Disney's not going to do that anymore.
Right.
So Reedy Creek, or whatever the Central Florida Tourism District, or whatever they call it now because they had to rename it, they're not going to have the same budget they had before, but they still have the same requirements. And it's ultimately the people of Florida that are going to have to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people look at their tax bill after this whole fiasco, this little vindictive fiasco that DeSantis put together, they're going to realize, well, maybe we shouldn't have reelected him for this. Maybe he's having a hard time keeping politics out of business and keeping it from being personal. And, that's really what it was. It was his own little
Oh, absolutely.
crusade.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, when the Florida taxpayers get their bill, that's when you're going to start seeing things change. And I think what's going to happen is by the time he goes to run for president, those tax bills are going to be in. And it's going to seriously impact his ability to raise money for his campaign. That's just what I think. I'm not a fortune teller myself. So that state down there of flux is really not going to be that big of an impact.
Mm,
Disney's the number one job maker in the state.
absolutely.
Do you really want to piss him off and have him leave the state?
And that's the thing, because there are a lot of people who don't forget there were a lot of people from California where they, the Disney company was transferring a lot of jobs from California down to Florida, and now there are a lot of people that are like, I don't know if I want to go down here in this hostile environment right now, the way that things are. So now there's, some various talk going back and forth of, well, maybe we should wait 2 years before, making this change, that maybe California is the better idea. And of course, there's, all the different people saying that, gee, I wonder what Florida would be like if Disney decided, you know what, we're going to just up and move Walt Disney World to a different part of the country,
Right.
and see how quick.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to, it's Disney is such a huge part of the economy down there that all they have to do is move one division that they have down there. And you're talking thousands of jobs that move out of the state.
Yeah.
And it's the response. It's a direct response to DeSantis.
Mm-hmm.
He can't afford that bad press.
No.
And the only reason he's doing the things he's doing now, and the other stunts that he's doing, it's not just Disney centric.
Yeah.
The whole stunt with the flying migrants up to Democrat cities, and his whole stance. I love the fact that he's got this major stance against border security.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody really needs to tell the man he doesn't have a border with another country with his state. He doesn't. So you don't have border security.
Right.
So he's doing all this just for the publicity he needs to gain national attention so that he can make a run for 2024. After 2024, assuming he doesn't win, after 2024, he's going to be relegated to the crap pile of history at that point in time.
He's going to be wishing he had a job at Disney.
Yeah,
hopefully.
because he's burning every bridge there. Because what's Disney going to do? They thought they bought him as a politician because they backed his original election. What's going to happen when your politician that you bought doesn't vote in your favor? You're going to go buy another politician.
Right, exactly.
And the last thing you want is to have literally one of the largest corporations in the world, again, a company with more money than God, backing a politician other than you in the presidential race.
Yep.
That's never going to end well for a DeSantis.
No.
And that's exactly what's going to wind up happening.
Here's to hoping.
Plus all those voters that they have down there.
Oh,
all those
absolutely.
taxpayers that they have down there that are getting screwed by DeSantis. Does he think they're going to vote for him for president? If he gets into a pissing match with Disney when he's just a governor of a state, what's he going to do as president? He's not going to be looking out for these people.
No.
So he's burning his own bridges. So by 2024, between him and Trump tearing the Republican Party to the ground and literally just burning it to the ground, he's not going to have anything after 2024. So I'm not worried about any of that stuff.
Okay.
But, Iger's staying out of that now. It was
Right.
funny how he was commenting on it when Chapek was steering the ship in the wrong direction.
Right.
To
try and get him.
Right. Chapek already had the company in the ditch, and he was over there kind of poking a stick in his cage about it.
Right.
Now that he's back in charge, he's not saying anything about it. He's
No.
tight-lipped about the whole thing.
Which is the way it needs to be.
Exactly. So the one thing I did see is that they're doing away with the parking charge.
Right. We did see that was, one of the things that did go away.
And that helps me to justify going down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really been one of the only things I've seen kind of come back. I know they were talking about the reservation system, that
Right.
they were still leaving that in place, but they were opening it up for more people. The park hopping, changing the time on that to make it more accessible. I think they were starting to do some of the annual passes.
Right. They were doing the extra
Again.
magic hours in the morning. They were expanding out to other resorts.
Right.
The
So,
problem is Chapek dug a huge hole. that
Right.
He's got to claw his way out of before he wins people like me back.
yeah,
And I wasn't a big fan of Iger's to begin with.
right,
So he's going to have to, he's got his work cut out for him.
right.
I would want to be in his position. And I don't think he's going to be able to fix all of this stuff in 2 years.
No, I think a lot of it's going to take time because it's one of those things. They were so quick to make the changes in the first place, and then of course you had the pandemic that kind of escalated it.
Kind of breathed down, was
So-
breathing down everyone's neck about it.
Right. So like now you have, they're starting to do dining options again, like not the traditional dining plan that they had before, but something,
And they got to get rid of the Genie Plus. Oh my God.
they're not though. That's the problem. Genie Plus isn't going
They'll
anywhere. They're
never-
modifying it
They'll
again.
never win me back
Right.
with Genie Plus. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was a waste of money. It was a terrible experience.
Mm-hmm.
I walked out of Disney for the first time in, 18 years that we've been going? 15 years that we've been going? Walked out of the first time and felt like I didn't get my money's worth out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're paying Disney money,
Right.
you damn well better feel like you're getting your money's worth out of it.
No, I agree. I was very disappointed with it as well, but you never even you never felt like you had that with the fast passes. Like you didn't have to really learn how to navigate it. It was there were probably people when FastPass first started that had a hard time with it and didn't quite understand how to make it work and and that was
once you're going to hang a fast pass, you could make the system work for you.
right.
There's no way the Genie Plus works for anybody. the way
I don't
it's
know.
set up.
That's the thing is I think we probably needed to do a little bit more research. But that's
It's
the
a
other
broken system, though.
but that's my whole point is that I shouldn't have to take a college course in how to use Genie Plus before I go on a vacation. That's where
And the thing is, they build it as being anybody can use it. It's super convenient. You do everything through the app. Everything's wonderful.
right.
Well, one, I'm paying for it. Two, it has built-in restrictions that doesn't even come close to comparing with FastPass the way it
Right.
was.
Right.
Three, the app was terrible.
Right.
It was confusing. It didn't always work. Oh, and you got to kill your phone battery just so you
Right.
can get around the park.
Right. Exactly.
Terrible idea.
Right. The idea is I'm on a vacation. I shouldn't have to be constantly on
Right.
my phone. Like when they had FastPass Plus, when they had the FastPass system, you know, as long as you knew what time your FastPass was for,
It was simple. It
you
was
didn't
easy.
need to be on your phone.
I could do all that on my phone, or I could go to a kiosk, or I
Right.
could go to a park cast member in the park. I got options.
Right.
And that was free.
Right.
I'm paying for a system that they've deliberately handicapped now.
Right.
So as long as that's in place, they're not going to get me back.
Mhm.
It's just that simple.
No, I agree.
So, sorry, Bob, but it's an uphill battle. I wouldn't want his job.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even want his salary for his job, to be honest with you.
It's gonna take a while. It's not something that's gonna.
But that's the thing. He doesn't have a while.
He doesn't have a while. Yes, I know. Well,
So
and
unless
maybe
he's making revolutionary changes, they're breathing down his neck about $5.5 billion that they didn't lose, that they want back because they're not making money
Right.
fast enough. That's what they're concerned about.
and that's the thing is, where is it that you're cutting these jobs? Is it from, you know, certain divisions? Is it
Well,
a
'cause
little
they
bit?
didn't ramp back up from the cuts from COVID.
Right, and that was going to be my next thing. Is I know that there are still cast members from the parks that never got called back because they just never opened up that section of the park, or, you know, where they had worked before. So
Yeah.
that's okay. How many, you know, are these new cuts? Now what are you going to cut? What are you closing? Or is it,
Yeah.
you know, that's the whole thing.
What service am I losing now when I
Right.
go down?
But I'm
Because
paying
you're
for.
not going to cut the price.
Right.
You're going to raise the price and cut
Because
the
you need to
service
make
again.
them right. Because
Right.
you need to make the money now.
So I'll wait for the dust to settle
Yeah.
and figure out who his successor is and how bad they are
Yeah, I guess
before
we'll
I
have
go
to
back
see.
down. Anyway. Okay, we haven't had a chance to bash Disney in a while. It was good to
See, do you feel better now?
I do. I feel like there's a weight lifted off of me now. This was such a great de-stressor for me.
I'm so glad.
So that's all we had today. Before we do go, I want to once again invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. Audio versions of this podcast can be found listed as Insights into Entertainment. You can get audio and video of all of our podcasts listed as Insights into Things. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, etc. I would also invite you to write to us. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com.
You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/insights_things.
We do stream 5 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/insightsintothings.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast.
You can find us streaming 6 days a week on YouTube, as well as all of our videos on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings.
You can find us on Instagram at instagram.com/insightsintothings.
Or you can find all that and more on our official website at insightsintothings.com. That's it. Another one in the books.
Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Tomorrow, where we take a deeper look into how the issues of today will impact the world of tomorrow. From politics and world news to media and technology, we discuss how today's headlines are becoming tomorrow's reality.
Welcome to Insights into Tomorrow. This is episode 18, Artificial Intelligence. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my co-host, Sam Whalen.
Hey, everybody. You believe we've done 18 of these?
18, wow. We're on a roll.
Wow. We'll get to 100 in no time.
Yeah, we kind of have fallen off of our cadence of monthly podcasts on this, haven't we?
There's just nothing to talk about.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you steer away from all the controversial topics.
Exactly.
So this week we're going to talk about a nice safe topic, and that is artificial intelligence.
No dire implications with that.
So you know how this one's going to end. Folks. So is the future of AI more like HAL 9000, Skynet, and The Matrix? Or is it more like WALL-E, Star Trek's Commander Data, or C-3PO from Star Wars? Some of the world's most brilliant minds, like Michio Kaku and Stephen Hawking, recognize the tremendous potential for artificial intelligence, but also offer words of caution at its development. Is artificial intelligence the next step in our evolution, or the first step in our ultimate destruction? How will AI impact humans? How will AI impact what humans create? And could humans be entirely removed from the creative process? That's what we'll be discussing on today's episode of Insights into Tomorrow. But before we do that, I'd like to take a